Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football with Jason and the coach. I'm the host, Jason Watkins. He's the coach, Philip Roybal, the other way. And if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame college football. I'd like to welcome into the show, old Pimp Daddy Payne himself, Jake Merrill, the coach.
Yo, I like that, dude. Pimp Daddy Payne, man, because I was a hitter back then, man. Like that's what I got recruited for, baby. Was my ability to dislodge the ball from the wide receiver or the tight end or the running back. So
I like it, brother.
I like
it.
Man, that was my favorite part.
You know, football is a violent game, and yes. I loved it. I loved the violence.
My God, me too. Man, I tell you, what's crazy too. I mean, I know we're jumping off topic, but what's one of the crazy things I used to do?
We're off topic.
sorry, but I gotta say this though, guys, to think about this is I used to train in Muay Thai to get my hips to rotate faster. Right, with more power and force, so that way when I turned and I made my turns or cuts against a wide receiver, right, like I was rotating quick enough that I could pull around and stay on his inside or outside hip, depending on the type of coverage you were playing. So, man, and then of course, obviously bringing your hips through in a tackle. So, man, I'm all about the violence, people.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Jake. I'm just busting chops a little bit. Want to say hello to everybody in the comment section. Mars Jams, Chicken, Steve B, Kyle DePuis, Rob077 back for more. I mean, we've been giving it to Rob because he's a Mizzou fan, but he comes back anyway. I mean, I appreciate it. I much appreciate their Hankster already in here, already picking at coach the second he sees him. I love it. Stick us cut. What's up, my man? Thanks for everybody coming in here. Make sure you wipe your feet as you come in. Hit that like button. Share us with your friends. Let us know what's going on. Guys, a lot of, I mean, we can talk about a few other things and stuff, but I thought we'd start off with a little bit of, the recruiting arms race has gone
crazy.
Luxury. Supercars, what did they used to call it? Hookers and blow, but now it's fast cars and fast women and private jets even. So as everybody saw yesterday, imagine that Texas pulling up a bunch of luxury cars, Lamborghinis to be exact. In fact, let me get share that screen here, and I want to actually get the sound here too. I don't know if the sound will work, but hey, crank them up.
Jesus. Wow.
I guess if you can't win championships, you can, use your money to bring in players. The Texas way. All kidding aside, it feels like we're back in the Pony Excess days, back in SMU. They got them the death penalty. Obviously, you're allowed to do these kind of things. I mean, you can only throw so much shade. But to me, it almost feels a little bit. It feels a little grimy, though, doesn't it, guys? I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Coach? Tell me.
Oh, guys, I tell you what, college football is creating this culture, though, and we're going in a whole different direction. We're getting away from the traditional values of college football, and quite frankly, we're going into the shit tank. And this is just another case of it here. What are you going to do when you let those guys drive those Lamborghinis for the weekend that they're visiting, and it's already happened. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. It's already happened in other schools. Kids have died, and you know, I'm gonna tell you what. I'm a grown man. I'm 63 damn years old, and you put a Lamborghini in front of me, and in Austin, Texas, and you don't, you know, hell, I have a Ford F-250 pickup truck that I drive, and Jason's been with me when I do it. My average speed's over 100 miles an hour.
I would not get in a Lamborghini with you, brother.
I'm going to tell you what.
Whoa.
People would be in deep shit because I would be driving it. I'd be driving it crazy. I'd be driving it fast, and I'd probably be drinking while I was doing it. And so we expect these kids to put that kind of power in their hands, and everything's going to be okay. Something bad is really going to happen. And it just, I tell you what, I hope this. I hope that at the University of Notre Dame, I hope that we never stoop to doing that kind of crap to try to get a recruit in. If we do, you know, I'm going to be highly disappointed. And if I was a Texas Longhorn fan and supporter, I would be highly disappointed. And that's how we're trying to entice kids into.
I'm gonna tell you, the guys on Twitter are not. In fact, they make a lot of excuses for it. They're saying, you know, they're not giving them those cars. If y'all think they're giving them those cars, you're stupid. What the fuck are they out there for? I mean, what are we even talking about? I mean, they may not be giving them to them, but I'm sure that there's a lease of some kind involved, that they're not paying for the lease. It's part of their NI. I mean, look, the truth of it is, if you have, it's a marketing thing for these dealerships and stuff like that. I was reading something on The Athletic earlier. You got Caleb Downs, who obviously left Alabama and went to Ohio State. He immediately gets a Range Rover when he gets there. They've got deals with a lot of these car dealerships. And honestly, if you think back to old recruiting days, listen, this is the stuff that got Rhett Bomar kicked out of Oklahoma, was car dealership shady dealings, you know?
Yeah.
So look, I mean, it just kind of, it reminds you of that. But I mean, the truth is, there's nothing against the law about it. But it doesn't, because you can do it, it doesn't necessarily mean you should. Jake, what do you think about it?
Man, I don't know. I'm not okay with like the Ferrari thing. I don't think cars, like lining up a bunch of cars, is the way to go. As far, because
Substance.
Yeah, and coach was right on this. Like, in the end of the day, that's not what the game is about. It's not about like getting. You have to understand, like, when football ends. And let me put it this way, 1% of all high school football players play Division I football. Okay, 1%. It's even less who go to the NFL for college. It's like 0.22 or something like that, right? So that is, by showing that, you basically are showing a fake profile of what it's like to come and play college football, because majority of players who play, they're not going to end up in careers that are going to allow them to go buy a Lamborghini. Yeah, maybe if you work hard, maybe if you get a really good degree,
guys that are getting them either.
No. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a smart NFL guy, instead of the guys who go broke, all you got to go is watch 30 for 30 and watch like the broke episode. Look at all the professional athletes who go broke. So here's my thing: is like, again, going back to what Coach says, this side, basically, it creates this smoke screen, or not even a smoke screen, but something real like shiny and new and nice, when truly that's not what the game is about. The game's about instilling, like, building on morals, creating integrity for a team. It's building on value. It's learning new lessons that you can apply in life, and you can apply to your family. You can apply to, you know, yourself in every little aspect. It's also about like making memories, because those memories are foundational to how you impact the rest of the people around you for the rest of your life, right? And so I think that's the part that's almost being missed when you put up these big, especially with like all the cars. Now, I'm not saying like you can't sit there and say Texas
Imagine
is the
that
only
Shotty's
one.
taking the other side.
Yeah. And you're right, man. Like Shotty, I will say that era is over. Like it is. But how do we? I think there's something really, really big as far as, and you would know this, Shotty. You played, coach. You know this from the coaching aspect. But there's something really a lot deeper in this game, and we don't want to lose that foundational piece of this game. So I think, don't get me wrong, people are going to go out of their way in recruiting trips. We see it all the time with nice things, fun stuff, like cool.
Sure.
That's the excitement of the recruiting aspect. Don't get me wrong. I went through it all over the nation. I got to go all over on unofficials and have my set of officials. Right. And so yeah, I'll tell you, man, like it happens. They make it nice. They make it fun. But I think when we really get into like the car thing, that's where it's like, man, like lining up Ferraris down the line. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, those are all Lambos, every one of them.
Or sorry, Lambo. Sorry,
and they even had, I mean, Dominic Williams, when he went on his visit over there, they picked him up in a soccer mom Lambo.
But that's different.
But they was, Oklahoma overpaid for him, but they showed up in a Lambo.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at on it. I don't care what they do. I don't care what they pay. And I've always been pro pay the players. They need to put, they need to get paid whatever. I don't think that NIL is what it's supposed to be. Obviously, it's supposed to be endorsements. Although this screams that they're getting to drive a car, or not all of them. And I think that, but they're using it as an enticement to basically say, yeah, come here, we'll get you a Lambo, you can drive it around. Coach, I guess my question would be, it feels to me like a situation where can you foster the right kind of culture in your locker room by doing this kind of stuff though? I mean, I think there has to be a balance of fun but being there for business, and I think that's where you were kind of headed with that, Jake, right? Is like, you're supposed to be there to try to go and make the real money in the NFL. But if you're living the life and all that stuff, I mean, look, like I said, I don't really care how they do it or whatever. It screams desperation to me a little bit as far as like when it goes with some of these programs. But as a business owner, I don't really have a problem with the business owner themselves choosing to, take a popular kid and stick him in the car. But it could look bad on you if they wreck it.
Well, we're walking a tightrope, and Shotty, I get what you're saying. The games are changing. We got to change with it. We don't want to be like sitting there at Clemson, and you don't want to change with the times. I get that, but I think we're walking a tightrope here when we start talking about, are we doing things morally right?
Yeah.
And again, when you can put a kid in, you're basically going to put a kid in danger, his life in danger. And is that morally the right thing to do? That's where I have an issue. I don't have a problem.
New drivers for sure.
I don't have a problem with change of football, although personally, I think it sucks a lot of the things that are changing. Yeah. But that's just being an old fart, and that's okay. Wow. But I'm good with the change. But are we morally doing what's right? And I'm seeing that culture kind of deteriorate morally, and that's where I have an issue.
Well, and that's what I think is that right now you've got a college football audience country that is not overly happy with what they're seeing right now. Certain parts of the country, and I mean, if you're a Big 12 fan right now, I mean, Timothy, thank you for coming in, by the way, Ronald Heflin, you as well. If you're a Big 12 fan right now, you're fairly concerned about the future. If you're an ACC fan, you're damn sure concerned about the future of what your program is going to look like, or if it's ever going to look the same as it did before. Or do you have any chance whatsoever to compete? The other thing is that we're seeing we've talked about this a lot the last couple of weeks. Rivalries are going away. The The things that we know about college football are going away. The transfer portal, you get excited about a player. Next thing you know, they're gone. That's here to stay. And now this is just kind of screaming more to, because all anybody knows this. I've already seen a lot of people talking about it in there. Eric Dickerson got a Trans Am. You start thinking about SMU, Pony Excess stuff, and the way that they were doing things down there. And you know of that as wrong, because back then that's all it was wrong. They got the death penalty over it for doing it.
So does SMU get to appeal all that happened way back in the day?
Right? That's what I'm saying. It's when you go back and you start thinking about all this stuff, the culture is changing so much as far as what we see in college football, that you can understand how this would turn off certain people. And I mean, look, I don't have a huge problem with it. I think they're doing it for fun and whatever. And look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's not a smart thing to do with stupid young kids, because it is, to be honest with you. Some of these kids come from nothing. You flash something like that in front of them and give them an opportunity to do it. Now, is it reckless? A bit, yes. I would say that it's a bit reckless. And to really just, it's one thing if you got a car dealership that now that it's okay that they can reach out to a player and say, hey, you do a little social media marketing with us, we'll let you drive the car, do this and that. But it's another thing when the coach is actually leaning into it and like spearheading it, you know what I mean? Letting them, come park a shit ton of them right in front of the places they do visits, official visits. So I don't know, man. It's a little wild. I mean, I think it's going to take a little bit for most people to get their head around it, but I think this is another example of just how different college football now is.
That's the truth. It is definitely different. I just think, like, getting back, Shadi, you're saying in the comments, like, this was going on. It wasn't going on, I think, on such a visual scale, right, that we see now. It's not, you're not necessarily getting some crazy wild car. Okay. Like that we all know, like, from the Lambo standpoint, like most adult men have a hard time driving them. They don't understand like the power behind them. So I do think a little reckless. I'm more with like what Utah did, right? Like, because for those who don't know, Utah last year, they did the dealership did, like, everyone got like a Dodge Ram, right? Like I'm better with that than the Lambo. But I do think, like, from a standpoint that there are so many, I think of it too, right? Like, I come from law enforcement, and they always talk about all the time, everybody has a camera nowadays. Well, if you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter who has a camera, right? You should be doing the right thing all the time, right? That's from the law enforcement standpoint, but that same mindset needs to be all over. And everyone has a camera, you're right. So everybody should be doing the right thing because everybody's watching. So I think that's the thing where it comes down to. I have no problem with the changing of times, the way recruiting goes. I've seen it
anymore, though.
It's different, but you're right. Like, it's just a lot of flash, and we're losing, like, almost, it feels like you're kind of somewhat losing the grind mentality, right? Like, what about earning some of these things? Like,
well,
that's cool. That's
the other
show,
thing too.
Right?
I don't know how you can. That's where it feels to me. This is where it feels like you're still kind of playing on the edge of this thing too, because of the fact that we've already seen that it doesn't really work. Because look at Texas A&M, that 30 million that first cycle when they got the quote best recruiting class in history, right? As far as the 247 recruiting classes, they got five-star defensive linemen. They got a ton of guys, right? It's not that it's not going on everywhere else, but when you overdo it like that, you haven't seen that work yet. Because
where's that natty at?
Exactly. That's the other thing is that honestly, there is nothing that has kept this quote NIL stuff from screwing people over. You got Jaden Rashada, who's now got a lawsuit against Billy at Florida because they enticed him away from an NIL deal that he had at Miami, then reneged on it, and he was out $9.5 million.
It was definitely and that's an interesting one, right? Like, we don't we're still waiting to see the details, of course,
But
on
the
that.
text
But that's a
messages where they
lot of
could have
money,
tied it to
though, to
Billy.
throw.
Had it
Well,
been,
it was
it's not
13
even about
point
the money
something
so
million,
much. It's the
right?
shadiness with which they went about it. There was definitely an offer there, whatever the number was.
Oh, for sure, there's an offer. I don't think you necessarily though throw that on to Billy Napier. He's going off of right and like or any of like from a program standpoint. That's where you have to do a better job of managing who's coming in with that money. There, like that's your issue, right?
Right.
Like this is the big issue. Isn't necessarily the programs. Like this has been
Yeah, what
going
about
on in
the
a way.
kids that are already in the locker room? Did you get them a Lambo? Because now that you're bringing in whoever you're bringing in with that, I mean, I don't. There, you can see some issues aside from them crashing the car. That's an obvious one. You
Mhm.
know, I wouldn't drive one of those things. I just wouldn't. I'm not a speed guy either, but listen, I don't know that I could handle that car, man. I just don't know that I could. And I would. I had a Rover for about 3 months one time, and it made me sick to my stomach. I was so worried about messing it up some way. I traded it right in for just another truck.
Hey, you'd ride with me though, wouldn't you?
In the Lambo, absolutely not. No.
Oh man, that's funny.
I was my butt was sucking up the seat when we went to Dallas last year. Holy shit, man. I'm sitting there like I cannot watch the road here.
See, I'd be good, man. I know. Look, I'm trained to drive fast, so
yeah. Look again. I mean, yeah, in the end, this is not. It may help them get you there, but you know, if it. The other thing is you know how much. What are they offering? What are they telling them they're going to get worth versus what they get? That was the point I was making about Rashada. I don't really, like I said, do what you got to do to get them there or whatever, but make good on it. And I think that if you don't, you're hurting yourself anyway as a program. So I say go ahead and do whatever you want if you're these programs. Like you heard the same stuff about SC with Jordan Addison. You know when they offered him $2 million, gave him $200,000. You know that's what you hear out of the pit, all the pit guys, and you know Narduzzi was throwing a shit fit about it. Rightfully so, because they, you know, it's a tampering. But the whole thing is that the NCAA has allowed this thing to turn into a complete lawless. There's nothing you can do about it, and it just wow. And not that again, I think they should have found a way to pay them a long time ago so that they wouldn't be in this position. But all they did was put it to where they have zero control over anything that's going on. They have no teeth left. Now you're waiting on seeing, okay, what's next with whoever's going to be a commissioner or whatever. Even from what I'm seeing from this revenue share deal, it has no stipulations for NIL because you can't stop NIL, but it's not even going to stop the transfer portal stuff. They're not going to make you sign or they're not even, it sounds to me like they're not even going to hold them to any contract they sign for revenue share. That's the picture that I'm getting, right? It is what it is, man. But I'll repeat this one more time. What I said before, I think with this kind of stuff, relationship recruiting is more important than it ever was.
Oh yes, I think that's how you win today. Besides, because you have to understand like what you're bringing into your locker room too, right? Like because there's Nelio, what's up, dog? I see your super chat, man. I appreciate you. But the thing that you think about locker room wise, right, is okay. So if you're just getting kids to commit based on material things and not like real heart, right? Because in the end of the day, what wins the game are not material things. What wins the game is obviously great X and O's, but at the same time, grit, heart, and teamwork together. That's the true underlining thing. So why present these things and want to go after if you have that mindset from a kid standpoint, and the kids are kids. I'm not trying to like diss on that because in the end of the day, it's the adults who cause the problems in the kids. It's not the kids that's necessarily a problem.
Yep.
But at the same time, from an adult standpoint, you want to make sure that you have that culture there And you're right. Like, how does that impact your culture? Like, is everybody getting equal? If you're not doing equal, like coming in and one guy comes in, he's getting way more than some guys just put in 3-4 years of grinding every single day, we got problems, because you're going to really kill that culture inside of your locker room. Jealousy is a unique thing. It's a unique thing, and it comes out of nowhere, right?
Yep.
And you can't prevent it. Okay. Like, especially if you're doing other things like this. So you got to be really, really careful around that standpoint. And I think that's where it goes into, like, yeah, okay, we're going to pour all this money in, but how much are we doing on the back end to really know who this kid and what he comes from, right? And what is he, not just from an athlete standpoint, but from a total person standpoint? What does he contribute to our locker room and our program? So,
and I tell you what, I'm curious of this too. You know, when this happens, somebody's going to one up it. So what's the next? What's the next thing that's going to happen? What's the next thing? You know, come on, man. At what point is the limit?
And you know, when I go back to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the whole Brian Kelly and him taking shots at, you know, that's the thing, is that you got coaches like Sark and some of these other guys doing this, right? They're just flaunting that you know what, there's no more rules. Guess what? We're gonna do all this. So, but then you've got, on the other side of it, you've got Brian Kelly telling us all that they don't buy football players at LSU, which we all know is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. They paid Angel Reese and Flage all kinds of money to go play basketball at LSU. You're going to tell me that they paid them more than they pay those football players? I'm going to say that's horseshit. Okay, just that much horseshit. But that's the point is, and don't tell me that Texas didn't offer him the same amount. I don't care what it was. They both needed defensive linemen very bad. And then you're over there trying to make the player look bad for taking the bag. And then you've got, you know, the 7-10 Lambos sitting outside of freaking DKR. Well, I love the way that they do. I love the way that they can conveniently do shit like that. They can bash a kid like Dominic Williams, who took his time, went to all the places that he thought he might want to go play at, spent time with them all, had a good relationship built with Venables to the point that they even went to both schools, went to Fort Worth the day he was making his decision to try one more pitch on him. And then when he picks Oklahoma, they overpaid for him. He's not worth that. We weren't going to give him that. And some people just want to get bought. We're not in the business of buying players. It sounds just like when he was at Notre Dame, we shop in a different aisle than everybody else.
Brian Kelly's an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, he is an interesting coach for sure. I mean, it's interesting that he has the success that he has, because he has a very unique style, right? Like, that's the part
coach, but he's not. He's a bullshitter, and kids.
That's the thing, though. People see through that, though. So how does he do?
Kids, so
he has to really surround himself. Oh yeah, and I think he really has to surround himself. I mean, I think he probably does the best job. I mean, look, he just brought over, who's that again? Bo
Davis. Yeah, he got $100 million contract. Bo Davis is the highest paid assistant coach in the country that isn't a coordinator. Mm-hmm. But no, we're not gonna buy players though. Okay.
Maybe that's a wrong wording. You know what I'm saying?
I tell you what, though. I tell you what, though, guys. Here's the thing: is and again, off topic a little bit, but as we talk about Brian Kelly,
real quick, let me get to the super chat, Coach.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, fellas, good Tuesday evening to you all. Appreciate you, Neil, as always. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate you. Go ahead, Coach.
I was just going to say, you know, he's been successful. Yeah, I don't care how you slice it or dice it. As much as I can't stand his ass, he has been successful, and he's done it his own way. But I think the places where he's been, he's been in situations that they were looking for success. He was able to build from the ground up, and that's a whole different story at LSU. He's not building from the ground up. And so I'm just saying, and not because I don't like Brian Kelly, I just don't think he's going to be successful at LSU as he has been in his past coaching jobs, because that place is already established.
Well, certainly recruit yourself though. And his recruiting class is good, but the portal, that Moscano guy just had another video out where he was talking a lot of shit again. But I would also say that somebody put out there that they did well in the portal, and they lost 29 guys, supposedly added 11. I don't see that, or 9. I think they lost 29 and gained 9.
Gained 9.
But I don't know who those 9 are, and I don't know how they said they had a middle of the road. A couple of weeks ago, Josh Payton had them dead ass last in the portal grades.
Yeah.
Well, they needed to fill defensive line holes, and they did not.
They didn't do it. No,
they have not. No, they missed on Dominic Williams. They also missed on Simeon Barrow. You know, and then they supposedly, when Simeon Barrow was leaving Miami, I don't know if he ended up going back or staying at Miami, but apparently, according to, and I don't know that I trust Moscano, but he's saying that BK said that he was they're not even going to do it anymore. They're not going to bother with it, that they're just going to go with their recruits and what they got. Seems a little weird to me, because they were concerned that they didn't get anybody in the portal, and then all of a sudden they got some guy out of FCS, and a small guy at that, and they're okay with just what they got, not getting one of those guys. I don't know, man. It doesn't look good. And again, there's going to be some kids that are going to definitely just play the money game, and I understand that. I get it totally. Not everybody's in the same position coming out of high school, right? Not everybody's parents are well off enough that they can afford to say no.
Right.
But the truth is, though, you know, and I think that you're seeing some of these schools that we know that there's been schools that have taken advantage of that and lied to these kids. And look at A&M. There's video of the guy pointing and saying, those are the boxes that the guys that are paying you guys sit in. You know? We know.
Well,
if you listen to those guys that left, they're like, good luck. Because they didn't pay us.
Well, and I tell you what, guys, here's the thing is that, and we're beating a dead horse, but until we have some parameters put into place, this kind of shit's just going to keep spiraling out of control. And you know what? The NCAA are not the people to do this, because they're friggin' worthless. They're worthless as tits on a boar hog. And so we got to bring this together. You know, let's bring these coaches that have a little common sense and know, you know, what that needs to look like. You know, again, I don't think any of us have problems with the kids making their money that's been long deserved. I mean, you know, and I even saw where Shotty said, you know, it's the American dream, you know, get all you can.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all good. But we won't even be talking about all this shit if we'll just put some parameters in and everybody follow the rules, and still people can be successful. So but again, we just keep
like a damn pipe dream right there, Coach.
We just keep talking about that shit over
and
over, and it's
true.
It's crazy.
It is true. I mean, it's nonstop. Like, it seems like, I can't get on a show without talking about the craziness of it all. You know what I'm saying? And it's the truth. It's important to discuss because I think it's what brings it to light, right? But damn, you know, like this stuff needs to get fixed.
And I got to tell you, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit.
There it is. It's about damn
There
time.
it is.
About damn time. Shit.
I
What are
like
you
it.
waiting on? I love it. Say it again, Coach. One more time.
I don't give a shit
About the brand.
The brand has finally returned. F your brand.
Oh man, that's good, man. I love that. I love it. Everybody follow the rules.
Everybody
Yeah.
follow the rules. Ha. That's why I said rainbows and lollipops. It's gonna happen.
but at least you have some in friggin' place.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, 100%.
Well,
That's
the thing is that from what we can tell, the NCAA has absolutely no teeth whatsoever in this matter.
They haven't had
They've
teeth
got-
in shit in
Well, and
years.
it's because of the way that, I mean, look, they screwed athletes over. I understand where Shawty's coming from, absolutely. And look, they turned this thing, it's a multi-billion-dollar per year industry that's just growing, and they haven't want to pay these kids at all. While it grew, they got fat pockets. You got coaches that are $100 million coaches, and yet they didn't. I mean, you couldn't buy them a freaking hamburger if you're Jim Harbaugh. You know what I mean? And I mean, those are the kind of little stupid things that it's never been. And I'll say this again: the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit started over 10 years ago. They drug their feet instead of finding a way to set this up to where they could keep their status, as far as their, exempt status or whatever on all that stuff, whatever it is, so they don't have to pay a bunch of taxes. But that's just another way for them to get fat rich too. And then they give them 22%, and that's supposed to be it. Now, thankfully, that's where they got to, that no matter what, whether you get NIL or don't get NIL, if you're going to one of these schools, you're going to get money. It's better than what it ever was. The NIL stuff, it just feels like that's going to be the arm that they continue to do the shady shit with, because you don't have to actually sign a deal with say your car dealership or whatever. You got a collective instead that'll just, cut you a check, and you do a couple of social media posts or don't. You know what I mean? It just kind of depends. Now, what I would say is this: a lot of these folks, and I don't know about car dealers, but actual rich people didn't get rich because they just throw freaking money away. And making an investment of millions of dollars on a player that hasn't played it down yet, I don't give a shit how good he was in high school. It's dangerous business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also dangerous business for your culture in the locker room if you're doing that, because what about the guy that has been there a couple of years and you're not paying him like that, and all of a sudden this kid comes in, he hasn't done a thing, and you're going to give him $1 million? You can look, the one thing I'm going to say about culture is what you do all the time, not when it suits you. It's the way that you go about things. Coach, you told me this 1,000 times. You do these things the same way every day with everybody, or you don't do it.
Consistency, baby.
No.
Truth. I mean, it's pretty wild, but I do think, like, from a culture standpoint, like it does. You do need to make sure that you're really, again, going after that aspect of like who you want in your locker room. I think that's going to be huge, and that's
your problems.
I mean, we look. I mean, it is you do recruit your problems, and I mean, Texas has been Texas is an interesting one as far as what they go after in the portal, right? That's probably been the most interesting thing, is like, you can see that through, obviously, social media now gives you a really good view of somebody's thought process, right? They give you a really good view of how they present themselves, and it's interesting. I wonder how many. Granted, you do your research, but I wonder how in depth they really go, right? Like, after what you're looking at, not just from a talent standpoint.
Jimbo, they don't go very far at all. they just look at 247 and On3 and say, I want the guy with 5 stars.
5 stars. But I mean, you know, like it's interesting because then you look over at Oregon right now, and
Yep.
Oregon's doing some unique things with Dan Lanning, right? Like
The Nike machine behind them too.
He does, but they're not doing it in a they're still cleaning up, but doing it in a different style, right? You look at even I mean, coach, you look at Notre Dame. Look how many recruits they have got already. And Notre Dame is a unique, and I bring up Notre Dame from a standpoint because that program history is deeper than any college football program, Division I college football program in NCAA, right? So Notre Dame has this foundational culture that has maintained since the days it was, you know, just this Irish heritage coming in there and trying to basically say, quit condemning us, right? Because you look back, like they did a very good job of the way they built the foundation there and the way they went after that hard nose, we're going to grind, but also we're going to present ourselves by hosting all their games back in like New York, I think it was back in the day. Yeah. So they utilized their program and they created a foundation that didn't matter really who you changed, I guess, in the last 20-25 years from a coaching standpoint. Yeah, success wise it mattered, but their foundation for the most part stayed the same, right? Like it very much. Texas is unique because Texas has a strong, where they should have a really strong foundation, because there is some, you know, they're a blue blood school, so but it doesn't always feel like it stays. It can, you know, obviously Mac Brown, he was able to maintain what he did there, but at the same time, and I applaud him. He was a good coach, but
yeah,
but from a standpoint of going forward, it doesn't feel like the same Texas. If you get what I'm saying, like you just don't get the same feel for Texas anymore.
No,
like something's changed.
Well, what's changed is the snake in the whole deal is Sark, and you know, just like you were saying, I mean, you know, you take a Sark, you take a BV, you know, you take you know, there's coaches out there that are really classy, do things right. You know, our guy in Notre Dame is doing things right, just like BV. But we talk. Let's just talk about those three guys right there. You got two guys that are really incredible, hardworking guys that are bringing in the right culture into the programs. And then you got Sark, that's a snake slithering through his culture. Guys, it's gonna. At the end of the day, all this shit is going to come back, and you know it's going to all fall back on these programs.
Not hiding anything anymore.
No, and it's but those guys that are, again, I think morally doing the right things, and like y'all are talking about, bringing in the right people to their programs. And again, guys, we all know, and we've already said it multiple times here. They don't have to all be 5 stars to win a natty. Now, the more you can get, sure. But if they are a 5-star, 4-star, 5-star kid, get kids that have a backbone, that are going to do the right thing for not only themselves, right, but for their teammates. And when you get those kinds of kids in the program by doing things the right way, and you heard me say this earlier, if Notre Dame does something like the Lamborghini deal, guys, hell will freeze over. I truly believe that. Because that's just not the way things work. I believe at Oklahoma, I don't think you'll see that out of Oklahoma, because I know BV. And that's one of the things I love about BV is he's not going to put up with that kind of nonsense and create that kind of culture. As a matter of fact, he's right now trying to get them out of that culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's true.
And so again, it's about your leadership and your programs your coaches what direction do they want to go. And I think those that hang tough in there and do the right things at the end of the day, we're going to start see them creeping back to the top of winning natties. And you're going to see those others that are doing the not so right things go back down. So that's just my belief.
Come here.
That's worth less than a fucking penny. So here we go.
Hey man, I think it's worth a lot more than that. I'll tell you that, because that's the truth. That's a great coach. That's a great way of putting it, because if we went through the preseason rankings, right, and we of even just like the top
when you
15,
come here,
top 10. Oh yeah. This was
go ahead.
But if we went through and we looked at, you go through top 15 and you look at coaches who are doing it a certain way right now. Just in this video, it's funny, Jason. I've saved this video because I think this mindset is impressive. Like, this is why I have Oklahoma as the dark horse of the SEC this year, who will be often overlooked and often put up a gnarly fight against some teams who are just not expecting it. Alabama, honestly, being one of them. And, like, I'm an Alabama guy. So, but the thing is when you look at this, right, you went through that top 15 programs and look at these coaches, who are those programs who are going to sustain and are going to really build, right? Yeah. Like, obviously what Marcus Freeman's doing at Notre Dame is impressive, because he is, I mean, shoot, he was right there last year. I think they don't lose that final or that game to Ohio State, right? Like that's a big deal. That was a big one. But I mean, and
we talked a lot about that I think there's a lot of parallels between Oklahoma and Notre Dame right now when you start looking at where they are collectively and where they're headed. So same kind of deal with, coaches in their first job. They're going to start on defense and doing some of that stuff. I mean, there's obviously some differences too, but I do think that when you look at it overall from a big picture standpoint, they are trying to recruit in the similar type of way. I think that Marcus Freeman has proven that you can recruit better than what anybody else would tell you that you could have done in the past. Again, BK was always, we have to shop from a different aisle. And they do have different academic standards. I understand that. And I know you got recruited there as well, Jake. So it was something that,
I mean, shit, I almost went there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, literally that was like, they had a defensive back, Zbikowski, a safety who was a stud. And it's just the same playing style I did. And that was a really close one for me. Like, truthfully, I think if the coaching staff wouldn't have changed, because I like the DB coach, right? Then that's where I would have ended up. But the truth is, I mean, Notre Dame, it's different, right? Just as different. But again, going back to what we were saying, if you go through these programs in like the top 15, right, and you look at the coaches, not necessarily the whole staff, but you look at the head coach, because it starts there. It's like a CEO of a company, right? So it starts there, and we say, what is this person's, like, what's their foundational pillars that they work off of? And it'd be interesting to see, and I don't know if anyone's even actually done this yet, a comparison of these guys who have similar foundational pillars and see their success rate, and also see how maybe not successful they are, right? And how they go about it.
You can just look at it from the surface and know that Kirby Smart will tell you that they don't get in bidding wars, and neither does Brent Venables. Brent hasn't won anything yet, but he's trending in the right direction. And but the guys that have won, look, Nick Saban wasn't going to sit there and have and just talk money with you first right off the bat. If you can't have a conversation with the coach about what's going on in this program and why the program is good for you aside from money, Brent Venables is not going to have you come there. I'll go ahead and put that video up, because this is the difference in these guys.
If you're not about that, then this isn't the spot for you. And so we worked hard at trying to protect the things that we're trying to build by being open and honest and transparent in recruiting too. Like, what you're getting ready to do will be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. Are you about that? And if you're not, don't come here. You know, and if you don't embrace the expectations of a place like Oklahoma and the scrutiny that comes along with that, you know, surprise, surprise, you know, it's no different. You know, you're out there for everybody. That's okay. You know, perspective is incredibly important, and I have an appreciation for it. Good. I'm glad the room's full. Good. And I want to meet those expectations. As a matter of fact, I want to exceed those expectations, and I want players that value that too. They get that.
That's a dude who's going to freaking win. I'm going to tell you right now. Like, that's a mindset. That's a win. Man, that's a mindset that will win. It's different. It's so funny because, like,
transparency is an important thing with kids too, though. It's like we said, you kids see
period
quickly.
Yes, 100%. But I mean, like, it's funny because we talk about, a lot of people go back and they look at like Nick Saban, right? Because Nick Saban did set the standard for coaches as far as his abilities and obviously him winning. So, I mean, but you look at like the different personalities, and the personalities are all like Brent Venables is a no bullshit. Like, you can tell he's going to have a good time. He can laugh with you, but man, when he is probably given his like pump up speech, you're probably really locked the hell in, right? Like, he's one of those guys.
Chew your ass up one side and down the other too when you make
100. And then you have like a guy like Kirby Smart. We know the way Kirby played in college because he played like a madman, and he's very intelligent, right? But Kirby takes a very much like, he has a Saban approach, maybe less scream in intensity, but I mean, there's like, it doesn't matter if you did it right. Like, he's not going to necessarily give you credit. Like, there's always something to fix. Right. And then you have a guy like, oddly enough, a unique one that's come out. You have Marcus Freeman, who he's intense, but he's also very, very much like to himself. He kind of keeps the same poise. And then you got like the Kalen DeBoer, who's like the dude you drink at the bar with almost, and you become best friends with type, right? Like, you sit next to you meet him next to you at a bar, on a bar stool, you have a beer. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I mean, he has this like humility, yet he doesn't feel like he's on another level than you, right? He just, no matter what, you just feel equal with him. And he has this unique way of making you feel comfortable, but also it's just sincerity and genuine. So you look at like these coaches alone, like let's say those four, right, who have had this success, and you can see it right now, like in their recruiting, right? Because it's the recruiting tells you a lot. Like, it's because kids are like, oh, we buy into that, right? So it's interesting, like, from that standpoint. Okay, so not necessarily a personality, but what are their foundational pillars all very, very similar? You know what I'm saying? And I feel like they probably are. So
yeah. Oh, I agree. And you know, I go back and, you know, BV
here's one of the players' dads right here that says he's a true leader in men. This is
absolutely. Well, and I, you know, when I was coaching at Dallas Skyline, BV used to come recruit our kids. And I could have told you through the many conversations that him and I had, that I could have told you that BV was going to be a successful head coach because of all the things that you're talking about, those pillars that he had back then that have stayed with him all the way through his career, his life. And again, those guys that have those pillars that you're talking about are going to be the ones in this wild, wild west that are actually going to come out on top. And you can throw all the Lamborghinis and cars and money. And I mean, at the end of the day,
it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done.
Absolutely. And that's what it's going to be. I mean, when I heard that the other day, I kind of started chuckling because I've heard some of Marcus Freeman's talks that sound almost exactly like that. You know, and he'll tell you Notre Dame's not for everybody. And he'll tell the kids, no, you know, Notre Dame's not for you. This is what Notre Dame is, and BV does that same thing. And again, going back to what Jake was talking about, I think those guys that have those strong pillars, and they're going to be the ones with the success through this Wild West college football change.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why I said to start with. I mean, I think that more than anything, yes, you have to play that. Look, there's no doubt about it. And when we had Mr. Boganowski on with us, we talked about that. He said, look, NIL is going to have its part of it, but that wasn't what they were thinking about first. And again, not everybody's got the same situation. That's not what I'm saying, but the guys that Coach Venables wants are going to be the guys that want to come and they're going to embrace the hard part and let's go and embrace the fact that OU fans damn well expect you to go win. There's no excuses for you to not go find a way to become SEC champions and win a national league. There's not. And guess what? If they don't do it, Venables won't be here long. That's just how it is because it's Oklahoma. Just like at Notre Dame's the same way. But when you recruit that way, I feel like that's why it's so important to recruit, by building relationships with the player, with his family, with everybody. You have to do it because if you don't, then, and you've heard Venables say this, you recruit your problems. These guys have been recruiting for a long time. They know what they're looking at and listening to. You're not going to deal with that kind of stuff. And if you get drama in the recruiting, what is it going to be like when he gets in your locker room? Mm-hmm. Where he's, pitting you in like.
I can tell you what it's like when it gets in the locker room.
I'll tell you
because I went through it.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up, like I went through this, like to the T. Like I played, and that's a great way of saying it because that's that comes from a military standpoint. Obviously, it's used within special forces, but we used it when we trained. Like I said, I worked a specialized task force. We used that in our training because there was a lot of stuff we did that sucked.
The front line suck.
Yeah, I mean there is, and it's a great. I mean, truly, once you learn how to embrace that, like it changes your mind. But from a standpoint of having something in your locker room that can either make you great or sink your ship, no matter how good of a coach you are, right? Like, because if I look back under Coach Willingham, right, back at University of Washington, my season I come in as a freshman, go 0-12, like the worst record Washington's ever had. And I look back at that locker room and I say, what was the problem? Like, what was the issue? Well, here's the deal. Like, there was too many, I guess, different. There was no true leadership. Number one. Number two, there was too much divisive. I mean, like divided, right? A lot of people were divided. And number three, like you didn't go in there and feel necessarily like from like a family aspect. I mean, I couldn't transfer. Like my coach left 2 months after the guy I wanted to play for, he left and went to Chicago Bears, right? Like happy for him, 100%. Right. But that's who I committed to play for. I would have gone somewhere else if that was going to be the case. But I didn't have the opportunity to transfer. So yeah, you have to embrace the suck. And then the next aspect is like in that locker room, if you do have that like it's almost like a cancer, right? Like it spreads very quickly, that the divisiveness, right? Where it's all like kind of split up. Like it falls into coaches, then you have to bring that together. You have to figure out where you're sick, right? You got to become a doctor and you got to diagnose quickly, because if you
got to get rid of the cancer.
That's right, man. You're going to lose. And that's one of those things is being very, very transparent and real in those conversations, right? Like, I mean, be honest, everyone doesn't like the way Deion did something at Colorado. I mean, okay, he could have said it different, right? Like maybe, everyone has their opinion on Donald Trump, right? Like maybe at times there's a lot he could have done and said, maybe should have shut the hell up and not been on Twitter. But there's a lot of good things he did too, right?
Not how Trump works. See, we know that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's an example though, right? I mean, and we don't want to turn this into a political show because that's not what it is.
Right.
you know.
Well, and I'll tell you this, as you're saying those things, I mean, you do have to cut the cancer. You try to sit down with kids, and I always like taking programs that were down and building and growing programs. But one of the things that you would find in these programs that sometimes they weren't really as bad as their records indicated. The problem was the culture in the locker room and playing field, and you had players running the program. And sometimes some of those players were the best players on the team. And I'm not going to get into any names, but and these are kids that went on and played big time college football. But there was times that I had to literally take a kid and say, look, we tried to work with you. You're not doing what we're asking of you. Yeah. You know, things are different. You're not running the program we are. So you're suspended indefinitely. And pulled them out of that culture. And it was amazing how quickly all those that were following that kid, it was incredible how quick they started becoming part of your culture and wanting to do things correctly and be successful. And eventually those kids that were suspended eventually saw the light and said, hey, you know what? They're winning now. They're being successful. And I want to be part of it again. And we would have that conversation. Come back to the program, but you're going to do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, then you're going to be gone for good. And again, it goes back to the fact of you gotta cut the cancer out. And it may be the best player you have or the best few players you have.
What is culture? What is culture? It's what you do when things aren't going well, not when they're peachy, man.
Exactly.
It's just like this is the same definition for integrity. It's what you do when people are watching and what you do when they're not. You know, it just doesn't matter. But Shawty, I would say that he won 10 games in year 2 after being left with a program that was left smoldering and on fire, essentially. And he is recruited in the top 5 and in the top 10 in those first 3 cycles, and he's trending again towards another top 5, at worst another top 10 recruiting cycle again. Short of going 3-9, they're going to give him the full 5 years. There's no two ways around that. But I mean, and I think that, you have to, I think that one of the things that we're going to talk about on the show, that when we're just talking Oklahoma here, probably Friday morning, I was thinking of doing this, but Bishop Frankie kind of brought it up earlier. What I want to see, or what is it that we think is going to be what's going to take Oklahoma over the hump this year? We've seen that, they've got depth everywhere now. They've at pretty much every position. Obviously, the questions that everybody from the outside talks about is this, quote, new offensive line, whatever, after the portal and all that other stuff, and they're having the best. I would ask you guys to tell us what you think is the next step for this team, and what is it that they have to do to get better. I want to hear that from my Sooner audience, and we'll talk about that on Friday. But the thing I'm saying is that when you look at what was going on before he got here versus where they are now, they were never going to be ready for the SEC. Lincoln Riley and them are not ready for the Big Ten. And part of that's not really his fault, because when he got there, I don't think he knew that he didn't want to go to the SEC, which is why he jumped ship. Oklahoma fans will tell you, thank God he did, because at that point, whether it's this year or next year or however long, if it took the year after that before they really contend, they will, when you bring in good players and you identify good players and players that want what you want, then you have to, it just stands to reason you're going to win. Now, if there's some fatal flaw that he somehow just acquired after 30-something years of being a coach, and he's not able to get over a certain hump, sure, I think that they would probably pulled the cord after like 6 or 7 years, but I don't see it happening at 4, short of like the bottom completely falling out of the thing. And all of a sudden you're not getting kids anymore. And there's something going on. That's not what we're seeing here at all, though. I mean, you just literally from kid to kid, every recruit. I mean, I'm not saying everybody stays happy, but generally, if they're not happy, it's not because they're like shady or they're lying to them or something like that. It's because they've told them the truth and that they're not going to get to play. So they go in the portal or whatever, maybe they're processing them. Bottom line is, he says it all the time. My job is to recruit somebody to take your spot. CW Long, thanks for coming in, man. It kind of is what it is, What puts over yes, can the O-line block for these guys? Of course, that's the first thing that we know. We also know that they brought in guys that have been in the SEC. When you got Michael Tarquin, we hope we get Michael Tarquin that was at Florida, not the guy that was at SC with the Tybo guy. But him, and then you got the kid from SMU that was considered the best center in the country that was in the portal anyway. He was really good there. That's a big pickup. You've got young kids that they recruited that, if I'm listening, I mean, all you got to do is look at Bill Bedenbaugh's track record. He's got 11 offensive tackles alone in the NFL right now. He's got at least another 7 or 8 guys that are playing guard or center somewhere in the NFL as well. A bunch of back-to-back first-round picks. I mean, the guy, if you want to go play in the NFL, and they're trending for a couple of 5 stars, or 3 5 stars actually, but all 3 have them in their top 2 or 3 chances to get them.
Well,
so it is what it is, but there's other things that I believe that there's something else. We want to see him take a step as the head coach and CEO, and that's what I've talked about with you a little bit, Coach. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, just answering that question, it's, what's going to make them successful. And let's be honest, guys, O-line, D-line, it's in the trenches where the teams that are winning football games, it's down in those trenches. Obviously, you got to have the back ends on both sides of that, but you got to be successful with your offensive line and your defensive line. And that's a big thing in the SEC. And one of the reasons they continue to be successful is because they have some man-childs playing in there in the trenches. And that's going to be the difference maker at the end of the day.
100%. I think too, I think that's where Oklahoma is gonna. I think the biggest question mark, right? Obviously, is the offensive line aspect, because you're right. Like everyone's saying the same thing, and it's the truth. Like, how fast can you get these guys to gel, right? And he's great.
There's more to it than that. But go ahead.
But I mean, like, how fast can you get these guys to really pick up on the scheme and perform at the level, right, that's expected of them, especially at a program like Oklahoma, especially with a position coach such as Bedenbaugh. So I think that's going to be, it'll be interesting to see, because their first 3 games, right, like hopefully that allows them to work out those kinks. I mean, I always say it's about their first 3 games. If you're not nailing it in the first 3 games, maybe a 4th, but from there, like now you have to start looking at your season and going, okay, like shit, like we got to do something here, because this is not getting fixed, and they're not picking up on this concept or whatever we're doing. So and I know it's hard, because a lot of people have been, they did. I think hopefully it's getting better, but scheduling patty cake games in the beginning, that's harder to judge really where you're at. You know what I'm saying?
Amen, brother.
Like, yeah, I don't like, scheduling scrimmages basically in the start.
Like Notre Dame did last year.
Yeah, it just does not help you when you come down the stretch and you got to play a tough opponent.
Yeah.
Like, test yourself early and often, So
yeah. Let's see who was somebody asked which one of these tackles Sooner in Texas, which one of the tackles you think they're going to get. I think that they already have a potential 5-star in Ryan Foji in the mix. He's already committed. He went from 400 to 89 in the composite rankings right now. He's the same size as Haywood and Fasusi. But I would tell you that Haywood and Fasusi both are strongly considering him, and you may only get one of them. You may not get either of them. It looks like they're going to get one. That's what my feeling is. I don't know which one. And again, I'm not that guy that does a lot of predicting. I said it looks that way. Nothing surprises me in recruiting. I also know that Bill Bedenbaugh, look, I've said this a bunch of times, is that offensive linemen are the toughest guys to identify particularly for these recruiting sites. They get them wrong more than anybody else. The 5-star guys, I mean, there's data out there that will tell you that. That and linebackers are the two hardest ones to get right on, because it's not just about size and athleticism or whatever. There's things that happen, but I would tell you that, look, I think they're gonna be good to go. I think the guys that they have in there that are redshirt freshmen right now, guys like Joshua Bates, Ozida, we've talked about Jake Taylor. A lot of these guys, they're going to have to probably play at some point. This is a league where you're going to get injuries, and you need them to be good as well. So I would tell you that I think they're already in better shape than people think they are. It's easy to say you lost all 5. The truth is, one of the guys that's already a starter would have been a starter had he not been hurt starting last year. He would have been a starter right off the bat. So he didn't start he started at the end of the year, but he wasn't an all year long starter. And we're talking about Sexton on that one. He's a stud. The guy, we have a freshman All-American guard that came from North Texas, Fabichi Wewu. He's already got a lot of talent. He's going to be so this is a guy who's already played at the FBS level. Obviously, it's not the SEC, but he was a freshman All-American. Then you've got, as I said, Michael Tarquin, who's been in the SEC before. He's played for big-time programs. So it's not as dire as I think people are making it out to be either, right? Again, you have the best coach in the country at that position. I'm good with what I generally don't worry about it. On top of that, they also coach. Let me ask you this. When you had a new line or whatever, but let's say your D line was good, did you feel good about what they were going to get development wise because of going up against those nasty dudes on the other side every day? Didn't you think that was going to accelerate your offensive?
Hell yeah. I mean,
and this is what I've been saying a lot. So
metal sharpens metal, man.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, when you're going against some studs every day in practice, you're going to get better. I mean, if you're not getting better, you're going to really be not worth a shit at all. Because if they don't improve, then you're in deep shit. But usually you're going to find ways to, number one, as a coach, you're going to find ways to put them in the best situation possible where they can be successful and run the plays that they can be successful in. And that's, again, I think that's a lot of the key, and Bedenbaugh is a hell of a coach. But I think not just being a great athlete and being big and all that criteria that we talk about, but as a coach and your offensive philosophy, how can you make those kids successful? And to me, that's more important than a lot of the things we're talking about. Because if they can be good, but you can put them in situations that are not going to make them successful. And so again, I think that's a huge coaching point is that you have to put them in a good situation.
I mean, that's the truth. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And Jason, you also said
there are no scrimmages, guys. No scrimmages.
No, I mean, like you said, you talked about like being able to, I guess, scout, right? Like offensive linemen. That's a very interesting one, right? Because especially in high school, and coach, you could speak to this too. depending on the level you're playing, where you're playing, right? It's different, obviously, in Texas in comparison to, let's say, Washington State, where I played, right? You will have a couple of kids who are size-wise and are just way bigger. They'll dominate purely because of strength and size. So how much of their skills are being developed, right? Like they have a lot of potential. Like you have to recruit a lot on potential, because it's hard to judge a kid, especially from the offensive line and even defensive line. Same thing when they're not playing against similar talent or even size. You know, that's why like the SEC kids, especially with those D lines and offensive lines, are always just monsters. You look at the leagues they come out of and where they're playing against in high school, they're playing against similar talent for the most part. You know, where football is real. And I think that's an interesting thing to bring up, because how really do you rate these kids, right? Like we see guys, so Alabama, right? They just picked up 2 offensive linemen within the last 2 days. And you look at a guy like Michael Carroll, right? Like, so this kid, 4-star, one of the top ranked interior offensive linemen in the nation. You watch Michael Carroll's film and he straight up dominates kids. Like he is number one, he's extremely strong. Number 2, he has a pedigree like you would love. I mean, his dad played at Penn State. His mom played Division I basketball, I believe, Michigan. But you look at him, his size, I mean, 6'6", almost 6'7", I think he's at like 295. But strength wise, it's insane, right? But you look at him and you're like, okay, like, could he come in right now and play? And truthfully, he probably still has development stuff, because he uses those abilities and that size and strength to dominate the guys he's playing against, because he's not playing against similar talent that he's going to play against, you know, further on, right? And that it is what it is, but it's hard to make those judgments. Like then you look at even the other guy they grabbed, which was Mal Waldrop, who, I mean, that guy, he's only ranked 3-star. He'll probably be a 4-star here shortly, I assume. I mean, just based on what guys have said about him. 247 Sports was just talking about him the other day, how impressive he is. But with him, he's another one where you're like, okay, his size is incredible. His strength is incredible. Again, could he come in and start right away? Like a lot of guys do that comparison. I like to look at like Caden Proctor, who had to play offensive tackle last season at Alabama, you know, number 1 offensive tackle in the nation. And I mean, he had these struggles because there's still times and there's still so much you gotta do. So it's hard to look at these 3, 4, and 5-star guys and say, man, development wise, like they're ready to go, you know, because, and I think that's where you have to give credit to Biedenbow and credit to a coach from the standpoint of what they can do, you know. So
says we reload at Texas. Yeah, you reload and shoot it right into your foot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I can already tell he's
Texas fans are so freaking delusional. One time in 15 years, and all of a sudden,
they reload, but you can't. You're going to suck all the time. But
right,
they reload. Yeah.
Didn't you just lose
they need to try to reload their ass to a national championship instead of reloading all that shit talking they do.
Yeah.
But going back to
they reload and fire it right into their foot.
going back to what you're talking about, Jake, is, and you know, and Jason knows this, you know, that was one of the things that when I was coaching, I could have actually padded our seasons easily. But I never would do that. My deal was, you know what, if you're going to be the best, you got to play the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just for our program itself, but for those individual players to have the opportunity to play against the best, if they even thought they were the best. And even if they weren't the best, we wanted to play against the best, because that's what creates better players. when you're sending out game film to different colleges on your kids, you're not saying, hey, we played Numbnuts High School, that's 0-10. You're showing game film of your kids competing against people that are playing in the Texas finals and semifinals, and that's how you figure out, and that's how you recruit as a college coach. You're looking at those levels of competition. That's the biggest thing you're looking for. I know when I was coaching in college, there was a lot of times I might be watching a kid on film, and hell, next to him, I'm like, who the hell is this kid? Because, he was making all the plays. And then, hell, I got off of the other kid and started watching other film of this other kid. And we ended up recruiting kids that were better that we weren't even setting out to recruit initially. But again, it's important for recruiting purposes, especially like we're talking about in those trenches, especially in the O-line. What's the competition level they're facing? And that's huge because, hell, if you got an offensive lineman going up against a drug D lineman, you're not going to get anything out of that. He's going to make plays right and left, and you need to see good against good.
That's the truth.
Rent free is the mating call of the chronic masturbator, bro. Come up with something better. Numbnuts. Oh my God. And I'll tell you, here's this.
The brand has finally returned. Fuck your brand.
I love it, man. I love it.
Well, and I tell you, I love that some of y'all here are rabid Texas fans. And I tell you what, I had kids that played at Texas, and obviously I've always been a fan of where my kids played. Fortunately, I was fortunate enough to see my kids all over the country. But I will tell you this, that Texas fans overall, just you don't see the light very well. It's God bless your hearts, and you know what? I hope y'all have the hearts. I hope y'all have the best season ever, and you lose every fucking game.
Oh, it's hilarious, man. Like,
hey, I second that. I second that. I think
I just get tired of hearing their shit.
They are right up there with where ESPN and FPI thinks they are.
We're back.
I put that in there with the CFB professor. We actually are going to have him on towards the end of the month here. He has that other he has a similar, well, it's another power ranking, and we'll probably do a show. I'll bring some of that up on Friday for sure, but we're going to have him on to talk about it. He has OU's floor at he has it. I think he has the floor at like 8-4, but he has their ceiling at 12-0. He's predicting 9-3. So, that's the prediction that he's getting with his model. Pretty similar, I think, to what you're seeing with ESPN. So I think that some of them, that at least if you're going by metrics and some of that other stuff, as far as returning production, guys that you've got through the portal, stuff like that, it's trending in the right direction for Oklahoma. Now, just general content creators that look at the very surface of stuff, they're going to talk shit. And particularly when you start talking about, Texas fans, they don't know shit, but they're certainly going to tell you. I'll watch Bobby Burton earlier and laugh my ass off because I didn't sound like they had a clue about what was going on at Oklahoma, but they were sure talking about him a lot.
Hey,
I don't use that rent-free bullshit because I think that again, chronic masturbator. So,
well, just a quick note for my good dear Texas fans. Texas A&M is going to kick the shit out of y'all.
I kind of think they are too, man. I've been saying that. I think that's going to happen this year. We'll see. Yeah, Coach, from Nelio, did you happen to coach up former Skyline linebacker Mike Moore? Played well for
Michael
us.
Moore, I did have a Michael Moore at Skyline. I'm trying to. My senility always creeps in. I'm trying to think if Michael played linebacker for us. Golly, I don't recall. I apologize.
Yeah, I'll do you one better sooner in Texas. Neither does Bobby Burton. We know Catch don't know nothing. Yeah. Yeah. Off-season champs, regular season chumps. Yeah. Look, and until he wins 10 more than once, I'm going to reserve my, dick riding for Sark, sorry. Just going to be how it's not going to be here. Ketchum should stick with French fries. I love it. I love it. Texas. We love Texas here. Not.
Look, man, I have
listen, I gotta
Texas
tell you,
me.
I have been the closer we get to college football season jumping in, the better this trash talk gets. I am super excited about all that stuff, right?
And Nelio, he did play defensive end for him. That's why the linebacker threw me off. You're exactly right. Great kid, great young man.
Cool. Yeah. The closer though we get to it, I was watching Coach Smook, and shout out to Coach Smook and the AAA fam as well from this morning. I jumped in there and kind of went back and forth with one of his AAA guys too, but because he was loving on Texas and hating on Oklahoma, and yeah. Anyway, it was fun. The closer we get to the season, the funner this gets because the shit talking just continues, And I mean, the one thing I would tell you is most people are not looking that far. I mean, if you're not looking very deep at somebody's roster and you're just saying, okay, well, they were good last year or they weren't good last year and, whatever, then it's easy to get that wrong. We look further than just, I look at analytics. I look at what we saw in the spring, the things that we're hearing out of the programs. I mean, this isn't surface level college football talk here. We make opinions based on stuff that we know to be true, people that we trust. It's still not a perfect science. You still have a lot tougher schedule at Oklahoma than you have at Texas for sure. But I do believe that Oklahoma I think that they overachieve or as far as what a lot of people are thinking. But I think for Oklahoma fans, the expectation is 9 or 10 wins. I think that's your expectation. I think it's fair to expect that, barring significant injury, right? It is what it is. So, Lamborghini, Texas. Oh, look, another one.
The brand has finally returned. Your head.
Oh, that's hilarious. But I mean, truly though, you look at what's interesting with Texas too is, for last season, right? We look at them and what they were able to do against Alabama. Granted, it was early in the season, but in Alabama, obviously showed great improvement towards the end. Yeah. But you look at what they were able to do against Alabama, where with the talent that they had there at that point, which we obviously saw with, some of the factors of their draft, but at the same time, they bring back their starting quarterback, right? Their offensive line is supposed to be pretty good. With Texas, what then is the question, I guess, that I would have is why can't you get over the hump? It's very similar to almost an Ohio State, maybe not necessarily on the talent depth compared to
Ohio State. Shit.
Well, and I'm not trying to say, but I'm looking at like from a standpoint talent depth, right? We're talking about Ohio State has a significant talent depth compared to Texas. Not significant, but more. What is the issue that tends to consistently be then at Texas that they cannot get past? Because if you have this brand that is considered one of the biggest brands in college football, everyone knows the Texas brand, right? That's right. What is the
brand finally returned?
That's right. What's the
brand.
issue? What's the issue, right? Like, that is the same question that everyone has at Ohio State, though, right now. Is what is the problem from a standpoint
I'll just put it
this
no, I
being
get
able
that.
to
And when Ryan Day, he's kind of in trouble, right? I mean, because you've presided over the program from a time that they couldn't Michigan to now all of a sudden they can't beat them. You know, and when it comes, look, I'll tell you this much. The Big 12 was born in 1990. In that amount of time, Oklahoma has won 4 conference titles. Texas finally won its 4th to break a tie with K-State. It's not the biggest anything.
From a recognizable
standpoint. You guys, every time you have one little morsel of something good happen, then we get to hear about it. And you still couldn't beat Oklahoma. As good as you were, you couldn't beat Oklahoma. And guess what? You didn't get better.
I mean, that's true. But that's the thing. It's like, what then from a Texas standpoint that has to be like, you're coming in the SEC. So you feel good because you beat a powerhouse SEC team last year, which truthfully they faced them at the end of the season.
For them. And look, I mean, for them for winning it, but for God's sakes, man, you lost to a less talented Washington 2 years in a row with probably the easiest path to a natty that any team has had since the playoff.
Yeah.
Gag.
Well, and that's where I guess you'd identify it at, is from a standpoint of saying, all right, so we keep going back where Texas gets a lot of love, right? They do. They get a ton of media love. So I'm going to be honest. I even think the playoff thing was very interesting. I could bring that up all day, but that will definitely stir the pot. So we won't go that route. But I'll say that I think it comes back to the culture aspect, right? Well, I don't think Texas should have been in the playoffs. Like, I know what everyone's saying. They beat Bama, who beats Georgia. I'm sorry, but Georgia easily should have been in that playoffs. And if you want to, I know where Florida State's at from a standpoint of saying, well, what about winning? Doesn't winning matter? That's where it becomes very difficult, right? Because winning does matter. You did go undefeated, Yeah,
we can have that argument all day too. I agree with you, but I they were better. They weren't. Look, we've all watched Quinn about 8 or 9 games with second half leads since he became a quarterback there. I mean, it's just a fact. Hey man, thank you for coming in. And I did put Kyle's got it for Oklahoma stuff. It's in our description down there. You go down a little bit, but I put the link in there, so y'all go check it out. It's a pretty cool video. All you fans, you gotta go take a look. Will Howard pissed down his leg. Yeah, they almost won that one. They almost, if it wasn't for a crap call against Houston, they lose that one too. The biggest brand in the land. Okay.
I mean,
but with the biggest brand and the least amount of success for that brand and all that recruiting power, you win the offseason a lot. You haven't done much with it. It's kind of sad, really. It's kind of sad. Kind of similar to women's college World Series, #1 team, talking all that shit, and Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, and this has been an interesting one because we also haven't talked a lot about, obviously, I know we talk a ton about Texas. We talk about Ohio State, which you heard us. We've talked about USC. God, the other night, I think it was last night, we went off about USC for like an hour and a half over around the table sports. That wasn't meant to happen, but it's all good. But what I want to know though, not from like their issues, but I want to know, because what I guess you see the recruiting going on, and coach, I wonder how much you could speak to this. Is where I'm most interested in is this year with Notre Dame, right? Now that they have Riley Leonard, right? And I want to know, when you look at Notre Dame's standpoint, just because I haven't looked at them as much, I mean, how do you feel about them this year? Like finally getting to that point of especially with their schedule, who they're going to face. Where do you see Notre Dame this year?
You know what, I first of all, having Riley Leonard, if he plays to the level he played 2 years ago, people better get ready, because I think defensively we're going to have one of the top 5 defenses in the country, possibly top 3 defenses in the country. If we can move the ball offensively, I think if we can move the ball offensively, and if Riley's healthy, he's going to add a different dimension as far as not just a thrower, but being able to run the ball in bad situations. And so I'm a little concerned right now about what we were talking about earlier, our offensive line gelling, especially for the first ball game against A&M, because I'm telling you, my asshole's so tight, you can't drive a 10-penny nail up my ass with a jackhammer right now, because I really believe Texas A&M is going to be incredibly tough in that first ball game. I think Elko does a great job, but I believe if we can win that first ball game, we could be 11-1, very easily 12-0. And I number one, I'm going to say this. I was just going to say our schedule is set for that, because we have a sucky schedule when you look at the teams we're playing. And I hate that. I really wish we were playing a better schedule. Unfortunately, we're not, but it is conducive to winning a lot of ball games. So I truly believe that if we go 10-2, I'm going to see that as a unsuccessful season for us this year.
Unsuccessful? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, 10-2 is not successful.
It's not great, but it'll get you in the playoff. And I think that's, if you get to playoff with that defense, you probably got a shot. You know what I mean? I think I could easily see them losing the A&M game, but I don't know that they will. I think that offensive line is probably where one of your strong points, right? I know you've got some new guys there, but when it comes to offensive line, I think they're going to be pretty good there. They've been good there. And then they've got the defense is what, I mean, the physicality of Notre Dame is what I like the most. They are physical. And that's, it's definitely kind of a new phenomenon for the last, since when Kelly was there. They had some times that they were fairly physical, but not like this.
Well, and again, we've been talking about culture all night long. We've talked about BV. You know what? We got a head coach that was a defense coordinator. Mm-hmm. So again, you're going to get somebody that understands defense, not like Lincoln Riley and some of those coaches that they can't even spell the word defense. Right. And so I think having that head coach that has that mentality, because I'm telling you, I think our secondary is going to be one of the top secondaries in the country. Our D line is going to be one of the top D lines in the country. Our linebacking crew, we're going to be a little young there. So, that's going to take a little bit of time and work. And we'll know early on if our offensive line is how they're going to do against A&M, because A&M will have a good defense and defensive line. So I think that's going to be our telltale sign. I know our receiving core in the recent past here has been horrid. I think we through the portal and through some recruiting, I think we're going to be better, but yet that's still to be seen. So I think those two areas offensively we've got to make some improvements. But again, going back and referring to a statement I made earlier, Denbrock, I think, will do a great job of putting his players in situations that they're going to be successful. You know, our running back room, we're pretty loaded, guys. I think we've got as good a running back room as anybody in the country when you break down all the running backs that we have. And it's going to be
about Denbrock too. That's the biggest. That's probably the biggest reason you should feel good is that he's back.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. You know, what we had as offense coordinator previously, you know, it just wasn't his world. He struggled there. You know, you go back to the Ohio State game. You know, you got probably the best running back in the country, and you got the ball. You can drive it down the field and put the game out of reach. And hell, we don't hand him the ball. I mean, you think Denbrock would not give him the rock? You know, hell, I think we're just going to see a whole different Notre Dame offense as to what we've seen, and that's what we've been missing at Notre Dame. And if Riley stays healthy, I feel great. But I'll tell you this too, guys, our quarterback room has improved so much that I would feel comfortable going with any of those quarterbacks in the quarterback room to step in and play.
Damn, I like that. I'm interested to see. I think that's the one thing is you do look at Notre Dame's schedule, right? And like this year is that year where it doesn't feel like they have a whole lot of tests, right? So
Yep.
I think those two, oddly enough, I don't. It's hard to. I know everyone's going to give me shit for this one, but the two games, obviously, and just because USC is a rival game, and it will be interesting to see how USC does defensively with DeAnton Lynn, right? Like coming in and running that. I can't. I'm not going to say he won't improve the defense. I think he does greatly improve the defense. Depends on how fast and obviously how healthy they stay, and how fast they pick up the concept. So. It will be interesting to see, especially with that last game against USC. But other than that, you're right. Like I think that Texas A&M game is your opener, is a very good test to see what this team can do in a matter of a playoff. Because I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a question whether Notre Dame makes the playoff this year. I mean, 12-team playoff. They're going to make the playoffs. It's a matter. I think.
I agree.
You know, what are they going to be at the end of the year, and did they face enough adversity to have their identity locked down, right?
Yes.
So
I'm with you.
Yeah, that's a good. I think 10-2. I do think they at the minimum you need to go 11-1 though with that schedule.
I agree.
I do not think you should be losing to USC at the end of the year. So there's just no. There's no way. No. I don't see that. So maybe
I agree.
I don't know what A&M is going to. A&M's an interesting one, right? Because
it is. It really is. It's kind of an unknown right now.
I think
and Elko does a hell of a job.
Mm-hmm. That's my big thing with A&M right now, right? Because everyone's written A&M off a lot. I mean, and they did obviously because of what Jimbo just did not produce with the talent that he had. It was ridiculous, right? But
hell, I think that's why we had him on the schedule, because they thought Jimbo still going to be there.
11-1? Are you shitting me, bro?
You don't think Notre Dame goes 11-1?
Oh, Texas is what.
No, are you joking?
11-1, he says.
Well, and I just saw somebody posted, and I'm trying to find it again, but talking about that guy. But I just saw where somebody posted about Notre Dame best seed they can get is number 5. Guys, I love
Texas and Oklahoma State will be in the playoff. Ooh.
Oh, Jesus. That's even dumber. But I got to tell you, even if I love the 5 seed, I love the 5 seed because, we're going to play the lowest seed coming in.
Mhm.
And then even in the second round, we're playing the 4th seed. So I like the 5th seed.
Yeah.
So that's just
That's a
me.
good point.
And I know a lot of people have been saying, well, if what if you go 12-0, you ought to be one of the top 4 seeds. At the end of the day, and I guess I have too much of a coach's mentality. You know what? I don't give a shit where we are. Put us in the bracket.
Yeah.
And let the rest of it take care of itself. Because you know what? Again, if you're going to win it, you still got to beat the good ones. I don't care how you slice it or dice.
Talking. Here comes USCJ. I knew he was coming. Notre Dame not winning to the Coliseum. I'm good to see you there, USCJ. But here we go.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad y'all have a different quarterback this year because the one you had last year sucked ass.
What's up there, Coach I and USCJ? Good to see you guys.
What's going on? Let's go.
And we're into the shit talking tonight because it's just been we got a bunch of Texas fans in here running their mouth, and so here we are.
Well, then is college football nut? Do you do Texas content? Is that what you do? I'm not sure if that's just your name or if you do Texas content, because in the end of the day, here's the deal. Like, we love the shit talking. Much respect to all your guys' programs. 100%.
At least have some real information.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
other than saying Okie Light's gonna get in the freaking
yeah.
playoff.
Well, don't get me wrong, but I agree. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like, hey, man, I love everyone's opinion when it comes to college football. That's what makes it fun, is the fact that you get to pick your team and absolutely just love to root them on. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's also crazy though at times where, man, some people really fucking lose their minds. They lose their minds. And I'm like, you understand this is a game and you don't even play in it. Yeah. Like, get out of here, dude. I get it. But
there's real hate though. There's real hate between some of these families.
Don't get me wrong.
Dude,
we've talked about this with the rival games, right? Like,
this is what's great about it too.
Yeah, I mean, shoot.
The things that we're taking out of college football, guys.
Yeah.
The rival games.
Lose that, man. We
hold
cannot
on.
lose that.
Oh, whoa.
Okay.
A solid squad. They have a guy that hasn't been able to throw the ball all 15 years he's been in college, and he's starting again.
For Oklahoma State?
Bowman, yeah. Alan Bowman.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Mm-hmm. Which has been a very confusing one for me. That's, again, Oklahoma State's one of those teams where I do not understand like how they've been so okay with being mediocre. You know what I mean?
Well, we've had that conversation numerous times.
We call him mediocre Mike.
I mean, it's just mediocre, like, geez, dude. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Ollie Gordon's amazing. Like, that dude is a beast running back. Like, holy whoo! But he's not going to win every game. You know what I'm saying?
Literally nothing bigger about Texas. Correct. Yeah. This is funny. Oh, coach. They'll be in the thick of the maybe for a minute. No, they don't. You got to quit listening to Cody on this one. You got to quit listening to Cody on this one. When the expectations are there, they struggle. Yes, well, I think Arkansas beats Oklahoma in week 1.
Well, yeah, Arkansas is going to be.
I'm not coming to Columbia this year. It's going to be awfully cold in November, but I might. Yeah, I think I could. I definitely. I mean, it's going to be fun watching that game. Watching Mizzou get drugged too. Big bad Texas. That's so funny. You guys are fun. You guys are hilarious. Thank you for coming in. I hope at least if you're going to come in here and troll, you at least hit the like button or the dislike button, whatever. Hit something, give us some love here. Since we're giving you entertainment.
That's right, man. But no, that's going to be an interesting one with Oklahoma State because I want to get on this real fast because it's a good comment. Like, because there are a lot that's showing as far as Oklahoma State's favor for the Big 12, but the Big 12 is so different, Like, it's so different. Like, I think that's the thing about it is like how will they, from Oklahoma State standpoint, like adjust to seeing some of these other teams, right? And yeah, maybe you're gonna say, okay, well, they're not as much of a challenge. I wouldn't say that. You know what I mean? Like I would also say that there's been a lot of, we've talked about the Big 12 a lot from a standpoint of how each week is kind of like an unknown. Like, I mean, it really is. There's no dominant team in the Big 12. There's no team you can just say, that team is gonna move it. Shit, Colorado could be way better than what everybody's sitting there saying. I personally think that if anybody puts it together doing a transfer portal haul, it's Deion. I mean, he's a unique style of doing it, but I think if there's anybody who does do it, just because of the way the guy might look, when you know how to win, the guy's won his entire life.
Top 5. They've got a great skill set. They got good skill players, and their quarterback is one of the better ones in the conference for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to see where they go. I think they're better than they were last year. I don't know that they're gonna win this conference. I think the best 2 teams are gonna be K-State and Utah. I just do.
Yeah. Here we go. I made the Deion comment, and already somebody's jumping on it.
Coming. Yeah, I was fixing to say
people hate that shit. They don't want to see him. Look, man, here's the thing. Like, I do, like, whatever you want to say about Deion Sanders, like there is a mindset. Go read his book. Go look at the way he thinks. There's a mindset to winning. Like, even if you want to jump on me about this, it's fine. That's cool, man. You're allowed to say what you want. But in the end of the day, like, winners, guys who know how to win in general, look what he did. Look what he did at HBCU. Look what he did in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so he's bringing a transfer portal haul. You're right. Like, you can't live in a transfer portal haul forever. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is this aspect of, like, if anybody can potentially do it, it's him. Like, I mean, I think that the guy hates, he cannot lose. Like, he'll lose his mind. You know what I'm saying? I think, like, in the end of the day, like, Deion can actually do something with this if there's anybody who can, right? But we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens. That's for sure. But yeah, the Big 12 is an interesting one. Like, and it's wild. You know, I even Utah, like, you can't get away from the Utah aspect, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I still think when they got, that was such a big pickup for them to get their running back there. The kid was good as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he was supposed to go to K-State until he, ended up flipping over to Colorado. But I think that was, they already have a really good running back room, and they added to it. Plus, I still think Matt Wells was a very underrated hire. Very underrated hire to replace their offensive coordinator, Colton Nicky.
Mm-hmm.
And Colton Nicky's a good guy. He's got his work cut out for him, though. But they definitely got to get better in the trenches. I think that the one thing I will tell you about Colorado is that, yeah, they've got to fix the trenches. They have a good offensive line coach there. They added some good pieces. Defensively, yeah, you're going to have to stop the run. But here's the thing. Everything is bad. He had 50 freaking sacks last year, and the dude only threw 3 interceptions. His numbers were very good. If they don't run the ball better, it's going to be tough for Colorado. I think I don't see them like above 5th probably this year. I think they're going to be better. I just don't think that. I don't know if you can make that climb. And I do think that this league, Coach, I was saying, they could 8-4, 9-3 could win it. I say you could see a couple of 9-3 teams in the championship game. I don't know that 8-4 is going to do it, but I do think that you're going to see a lot of cannibalizing in this league for sure. And they do need to recruit more in the high school at Colorado. There's no doubt about it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that I agree with everything that Coach Prime does. I don't disagree with everything Coach Prime does either, but I do think that you've got to run the ball better. You've got to do that. But their skill guys are as good as anybody's. I mean, they've got at the receiver position, and the worry I'd have is that they're going to have Travis Hunter out there on both sides of the ball, and I think that you should probably limit that. But that's my opinion. I think they played him too much last year.
Oh, I completely. I also think like it goes back to what you said, Coach. It comes back to the fact that you do have to win in the trenches. I
Yep.
mean, and you look at, like Colorado from an offensive line coach. What it's O'Boyle is the coach. I mean, and he's very successful at what he does. So if there's somebody who can turn around and get these guys gelling from a standpoint of transfer portal, you can see your O-line. I mean, and that was a huge focus for them. It's not like they did not say they didn't need it, right? They went after it in the transfer portal. Again, the question is, can you live in the transfer portal? It's said that no, you cannot. It will really be put to the test again this year, and we'll see what happens with what Dion did. Because I mean, he revamped his coaching staff. He brought some guys in that can hopefully make a difference. I don't know. I feel better about Colorado than most, but again, that's
do too.
my opinion.
And I we can talk about the portal, but with what he had to, when you're trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, you've got to get into the portal and get some players. Obviously, you got to go recruit the high school kids, but I think that comes after this. I mean, this cycle, he's got to be really recruiting some high school kids, but he had to use the portal, guys. I don't care how you slice it or dice it, because he didn't have diddly at Colorado. And so I believe that's the reason he's used it so much.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And you're right. Like in-game coaching, Coach I says this, but in-game coaching is still a question for the Buffs. And you're right. There was a lot of question marks there. And you have to, I think, again, that's where you have to go in and say, okay, he did make some changes within the staff.
Yep.
Were they enough to get guys on the same page? Were they enough to keep the mindset when shit gets hard, right? Because that's not necessarily always. Yes, you got to have the right players for that, but at the same time, that starts again from the type of coaches in your regime, right? Because if the mindset's not there to build that confidence consistently, even when you're going through adversity, right, and understand that adversity is a good thing, right? Because that's a trick. You got to be able to take a player, right, who mentally is going through whatever they're going through at that moment due to that adversity within the game, within the season, and you have to basically make them trick their mind, right? And especially today, like today is a whole new world as far as mental toughness. Whole new world.
You ain't wrong.
Whole new world.
Wrong.
Huh?
They said you are not wrong with that.
Yeah, so do you have the right people in place to make sure that they can very much build that mental toughness at the same time, I guess, foster it.
Who do you guys have winning, or who's the two teams you think will be in Arlington to play for the Big 12 championship? Put it in there and let us know what you think. What will OU's? Do you not listen? It's going to be OU's going to be 9-3, 10-2 this year, and they will definitely beat Texas. You will really. Texas is going to really be upset. They're going to go 8-4, 7-5 with the crap schedule, and they're still going to go 8-4 and 7-5. It's going to make every Oklahoma fan's year, especially after they beat them. I've got Utah. I still think Utah has, when you start looking at talent ranking, and that just the way that Utah goes about its business, they play like an SEC school. They're good in the trenches. They're going to run the ball. If Cam can stay healthy now in his 15th year in college football, he should be pretty good. They should be pretty good. But I still think that, look, if Jalen Daniels stays healthy, they're going to have something to say about this too at Kansas. Absolutely going to have something to say about this. As will Iowa State with Matt Campbell. Rocco Becht was good as a true freshman. And their defense is always one of the top defenses in the country. I mean, it just is. I think they're going to be better. But I do think that the problem with them is that we haven't seen Jalen play a full year. And then when it comes, we'll see what happens. Matt seems to lose one of those games down the stretch when he has a team that could win it. But it's hard to say much about Matt Campbell when Iowa State was as garbage as it was for so long. And they actually approached 9-10 wins a lot these days. So, but
I don't, who I think, man, who's going to be dangerous is Arizona. I think Arizona is your team. Utah for sure, but I mean, Arizona's what they return offensively. I mean, they don't get me wrong, like they did lose some pieces here and there in the transfer portal, but I don't know. I think, and Brennan's a good coach. You know what I mean? So,
hi, Chicken. Thanks for coming in, man.
But Arizona is probably one of those, man, that's like especially if they, from a quarterback standpoint, they just get him in a rhythm. Like that dude, he obviously showed what he could do last year, and Arizona came on so strong at the end of the season.
Right.
I mean, they came on strong. So if they can go out and Brendan can implement their style, right, and not change it too much, I think that's going to be the key, because of what pieces you do have is not have such a dramatic change where they're still having to pick things up going into game 3 or 4, right? But if he can stay within that style, I think Arizona can be pretty dangerous. That's for sure. And Arizona's new head coach is Brent Brennan, and he's good. He does a good job.
I think if they have a seamless transition because of the guys they got coming back, they have a good shot at it too. They early on, that's going to be a big matchup. I think it's week 2, Kansas State and Arizona, right off the bat. So we're going to get a good one there. You're going to find out a little bit about them both. I like Avery Johnson a lot though, and I'm telling you, man, with Matt Wells, I think that was a big move for them, folks. We have right now 140 people in here. We've got some of them on the other channel, some of them in Twitter. Please hop over to at CFB-pod. Hit the like button. We've only got 28 likes on here, man, and we got a bunch of people in here, so I appreciate it.
Well, guys, that helps a lot.
It really does. Even if you hit the dislike button, you Texas clowns, please do something.
That's all right. I support your guys' Texas.
I mean, we're not even kicking you out of the stream, so at least do something. Help us out, man.
Yeah. Nah, but and Richard brings up the point. He says, you guys can hate me, but I think Missouri shows they're going to be legit this year.
Yeah, no. I'm kind of I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean to him. No, I like Richard, man. I think they have a schedule that sets up favorable. I don't think they win 10 again. I think that 8, 9 depends. They're not beating Oklahoma. So hold on real quick, guys. You guys go ahead and talk real quick about that. You can talk about Mizzou.
Hey, Jace, I'm gonna head out, brother. I'm having
you out, Coach?
Yeah, I'm
out. All right, Coach.
I'll holler at you guys later on. And really enjoyed meeting you, Jake.
Yeah, okay. Coach, man. I'd love to chat with you outside of this too, man. It was a good time. So
absolutely. Later, guys.
All right,
Coach. Hey, Jason, do I need to leave this running so that
yeah. Just you can turn the camera off, but just
I'll turn it off.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Okay. Y'all have a good one. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Yep.
The coach.
Right. The coach. Philip Roybal, just don't give a shit.
Dude, that was legit, man. That was a good time. Like, honestly, for all those who didn't know, I hadn't a chance to meet Coach Roybal yet, so that was a pleasure. I've been looking forward to that. I have a lot more to talk with him about outside of this, but
as much as all you fans hate Notre Dame, they love Coach Roybal.
I get it. Everyone, look, I have a respect for Notre Dame, but at the same time, that's like been Notre Dame's like MO though. Everyone always hates Notre Dame. They always, that's been going on since Notre Dame was a program back in the day, like long time ago, man. I was just watching watching a history show actually on Notre Dame football the other night that talked about that. Like everyone just wanted to sink them because they were so against like the Catholicism and coming in and being a Catholic college, right? Which,
hey man, yeah, there's a lot of folks at Notre Dame that will never ever forget what Michigan and Ohio State did to keep them out of the Big Ten. And it was all, and yeah, the against Catholicism type of stuff. And
it was,
man, I mean, it's kind of like talking about religion. I mean, or like politics and religion are kind of similar.
We don't get into it,
but I would tell you that from the Notre Dame fans that I know, and Rich will tell you, he goes, unless they don't allow us to get into the playoff just because we're not in one, we're not going. Because, and I think that something that I was glad he brought it up, but when you start thinking about that 5th place spot, you're probably not going to draw one of the, well, you're certainly not going to draw, you're going to draw one of the other schools in that didn't get a bye, and then you would probably turn around and draw the next, because you're going to have the Big 12 or ACC is not going to be ranked above the Big 10 draw or bye, or it's not going to be ranked above the Big 10 or the SEC bye from the ACC or the Big 12. So at number 5, you're going to have, even if they get that bye, they're not going to be ranked very high. So they would probably, it's still probably not a terrible draw for having to play first week. I think you certainly put yourself in a position to get to the next week at number 5, because you'll be the next one. If they go 11-1, they're going to be right up there. Even though the schedule is light, I would tell folks that it's Notre Dame, man. The ratings will be through the roof. If they're 10-2, they're in. They're in. So, I think you got to beat USC. I mean, you essentially, if you were to lose to SC and A&M, then maybe. But I think you beat Florida State, you probably that probably helps you a little bit too. But it depends on what Florida State is. I've been saying that I don't trust Florida State this year. I think that they might have a hangover. I love DJU. I don't love the culture at Florida State right now, and I feel like I could just see these folks doing the same kind of crap that Clemson and just blame it on DJU if they don't come through. And they're not the same team they were last year, even for Jordan Travis. So if he had some of the receivers in the room that they had, I would feel better about it. But I think FSU is, I don't know, man. I think it's easy to have a hangover from 63-3, even no matter what, man. That's hard to come back from. Ask TCU. They got beat by 40 in the national championship game. They got beat by 40, 50 points. It hurt them.
Yeah. And then, and I'll jump to this because you see Trojan fight. I see your comment because it's a good question. But I'll say real quick is I think Florida State's
coach was in here for this question.
I know, dude. But Florida State's going to be an interesting one. I don't know because I watched DJ play in the Pac-12, so I don't. We'll see. We'll see what Norvell can do. I mean, he's a good coach.
I like Mike Norvell. I'm not saying I don't like Mike Norvell.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that they have. I think early on you had to use the portal like they did. I think now it's turned into a thing that, look, man, if you can't keep guys around to play a Georgia team that's lost one of their last 30 games, you can't tell me that it's a great culture going on there. That they're not willing to hang around and play with their brothers one more time to go up against the back-to-back champs, In the Orange Bowl, which to me, Bobby Bowden's flipping over in his grave that they didn't care about the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I think you look at those guys. I think it had a lot to do, obviously, what happened with Travis. To be honest with you, because I think you see your guy get hurt like that. And then you're looking at your prospects, don't get me wrong. There is something to be said about playing that game for your brothers. There's so many different aspects of this that you could come at it with, but again, like you also have to take into consideration the fact that these guys see Travis go down the way he does, and how I guess how much it affects like maybe them from
His
a mindset
career later
standpoint.
on down the road.
Yeah, and you have
I
to
understand
maybe
that,
that ends up playing a huge role in a lot of these guys who have the potential to leave to NFL.
I don't know, to me, but that speaks to the culture in the locker room.
I mean, it to an
Because
extent.
there
I
were
think it
guys
does.
that left at
Extent,
Georgia,
yes.
but there were enough guys that stayed and they wanted to have a showing out there against a team that was undefeated.
That's true. I just think Georgia
If
was
you
way
can't
deeper
find it,
too.
well, they're certainly deeper, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
that's
like,
the other thing. They lost a lot of guys and had to replace a lot in the portal, and they didn't hand him. They're not handing DJU the weapons. And I'm a DJU fan. I mean,
yeah.
you know, his pops is friends of the family or friends of the show for sure. And I'm a fan of his, but I think it's tough. I think it's a tough setup for them, and I don't, because I honestly, their schedule isn't terrible this year. I mean, they have the Clemson game, which is early on, and then they do get Miami. But aside from that, it's not as, you know, daunting as one might think. I would tell you that the Virginia Tech game is going to be one of those games, though, that might bite them, and they have to go on the road for it. So
yeah, I think Virginia Tech's going to surprise a lot of people.
But I also think that Clemson is probably going 8-4 this year.
You know? Yeah. I could see that with Clemson.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I'd even give them one extra and say 9-3. But getting back to that question with Trojan Fight, I saw you asked that. So that was a good question. As far as speculation on USC Notre Dame game, shouldn't continue without them joining conference.
Who's saying that?
That was the question earlier from Trojan Fight. He asked, any thoughts on the speculation USC Notre Dame game shouldn't continue without them joining a conference?
Look, I don't like that speculation, and I think I would ask you as a fan what you think about it. But we've made this pretty clear what we were saying me and you both made this clear last week. What we thought was that if you're Lincoln Riley and you're trying to make it really have a national championship contender, you need to play good teams, not run away from them.
Yeah.
That's a 100-year-old rivalry. It surprises me that there's people that are close USC fans that would not want to play this. And Coach, I saw what you said. I don't agree. It isn't important. I know it's important to Coach. And they lead the series by what, 15 games, I think it is. So it's not like it's I don't know. I think you need to play that game. You don't run from that game, you embrace it. And it doesn't look good that he's running from LSU either, because everybody knows he already ran from the SEC. It's just, I'm just telling you, I think the only way you get better is to play better teams. And stop acting like the Big Ten is that good, because there's a couple of teams that are, and there's the rest really aren't right now.
That's the truth. I mean, that's true. I mean, especially, if you compare everybody to like the SEC, which is,
it ain't the same.
It's not the same. It's not the same. I mean, like, in the end of the day, it's not. Yeah, the game of football is the game. I agree that that's the same. But as far as like the SEC, as far as what you're facing every week, and I mean, and not to mention, like, look at what they do with their facilities, their programs. Like, I mean, in the South, like, football is God. So. I'll tell you, I just think that I will say, going back to rivalry,
in the same position as LSU too. I mean, it's a good place to figure out where you are.
Yeah, well, agreed. Like, I think that's huge, man. But it's a dude. Don't get rid of like tradition. And I mean, if you guys are truly, you're right. It's not, Coach I, you said this. It's not. It's not like the Iron Bowl, right?
Okay, so did you answer the question, Trojan Fight, though? Do you want to get rid of this game? He's saying you want the tough gun. Oh yeah, Mizzou doesn't have a tough schedule in the SEC. They're not always balanced, but they try to balance it by what your record has been recently, which is why Texas also got the training wheel schedule in the SEC.
True. And I think
They sucked.
Man, I just this is a game though that the SC Notre Dame game, I think it should always be played. I mean, there's some games that, granted, whether you're in the same league, whether you're in a league, you're an independent. I personally would like to see Notre Dame join, right? Like I would like to see them finally join up somewhere, but I think it'd be good. But at the same time, like that's a game that we can all look back on and we know what it's done in history. And I don't like getting rid of those, especially in college football, because there's so much. That tradition is a big part of college football. You know what I mean? Like it's such a big part. I just would never want to get rid of that.
Yeah. I would say this. I have not heard this out of Lincoln's mouth before. I mean, you know me, I'll talk shit about Lincoln without prompting. But I will say this. Lincoln hasn't said anything about the Notre Dame thing. That did come from Colin Cowherd, although they are, besties and all. So I don't know. I tend to believe that this is where he's coming from, but I don't think it sounds good. I don't think it looks good. And I think, Bruce Feldman said it on the show that day when Colin said that, was like, bro, if this is what you're just looking to get to the playoff, or you think that, you don't want to play these good teams, you might as well just join the Mountain West instead of the Big Ten. And I agree with that.
I mean,
they're not joining a conference unless they have to. Here's the thing: until they don't bring them into the playoff, which won't happen, because you get more viewers with Notre Dame in it than you'll get it without it.
Notre Dame, money wise, by not joining the conference, they set themselves up perfectly, right? Like I had read something about this, and don't quote me on all these things, but basically it allowed them to be, just basically work every angle from a national TV standpoint, from the standpoint of scheduling. I mean, everything. It was a genius move in the end of the day. Notre Dame historically, especially after I watched the documentary I watched, man, they have always made really smart moves. Like in the end of the day, really smart moves, like to set themselves up for dictating their own destiny, right? Like they've done a good job.
So Coach, I agree with you 100%. The fact that it's a discussion tells you that Lincoln, if he's involved in this in any way, and this isn't just Colin Cowherd, because I don't think this is just Colin Cowherd, because not enough people are killing him on it. I don't think it's just Colin Cowherd. So I'll just say that's my opinion only. I don't know anything in particular, but you're not hearing anybody killing him. So that tells you that Lincoln isn't getting it, because you tried for 2 years to get out of LSU. Why? What for? You're going to even make $5 million extra off of it to play the game in Vegas. It's a neutral site game. And again, they're in a situation where you theoretically, offensive wise, you should be able to match up with them, because they don't have a defense either. They had the worst defense in LSU history last year. Are they better this year? Probably, but I don't know how much. But to me, I think it shows you that they're not traveling. I mean, you fire Grinch, but don't get rid of the strength and conditioning coach that is better off teaching P90X. It half measures. Also, is he going to run his offense in a way that's conducive for that defense to be able to make some stops and not have to be on the field too much? Because your depth is not great. I just feel like it's no, they wouldn't get a bye. Are you going to answer us? Do you think they should play Notre Dame, or do you not? Trojan Fight, you better answer with your next comment. Come on. I'm going to put you in timeout. That's weak.
That's an interesting point, though. Like, yeah, you go undefeated, you don't get a bye. I mean,
No, but I think that
because
again, the fifth place spot isn't a terrible place to be because you're going to get the worst of the teams that are in it. You're not going to draw number 1 or number 2 until later in the tournament.
yeah, but you have to say again, it's this mindset that Notre Dame
Now it
has
could be
towards their own control, right? They have full control. So I don't know if that's necessarily, man, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like sitting there going, okay, you don't get the bye, but you still get to keep control of all these other aspects of what goes on. Like you don't have to play to the rules of all the other from a league standpoint, right? So that's a hard one because would they want to give up that control just to get a bye game? I don't think so. I think their brand's too
well,
strong.
here's the thing. They make their deal with that they just re-signed with NBC is right along. It's maybe 10 million less, but then the college
they make
football
up for it,
playoff
though.
gave them 1%, which is another 10 million.
Yeah,
They're
they make
gonna
up
get,
for it.
they are going to get the same amount of money that the Big Ten and SEC gets.
Yeah,
Plus,
crazy.
they don't have to make that kind of money to stay where they are. Notre Dame's got like 30 billion in an endowment. They don't have to do it. Now, I agree with you that I would want, if you're number 1 in the country because you just went undefeated and you don't get a bye, that would piss me right off. Especially if I'm Coach Freeman, you know.
But I guess is that the way they go back and try to control Notre Dame?
Sure.
And get back into the
Oh,
money.
yeah, I think they're absolutely pushing for that. Absolutely.
That's interesting. That's a
not a-
woo. Damn. There's
absolutely
a
what's
war right there coming on, people. There's another war.
No doubt.
You
Oh,
said he
dude, you cannot say that, bro. Come on. Wow. Well, Lincoln has gotten to you too. I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. Wow.
damn. What? So I didn't see.
They don't get an FCS team like other schools. They can. What? Does it matter if you make the playoffs if you're going to go one and done like Lincoln does anyway? I mean, what do you care about making the playoff if you're not good enough to win the title? This is the thinking that I don't get from Lincoln. That's what he's worried about, stupid shit like that instead of getting better. You get better playing LSU. You get better playing Notre Dame. For the fact that he's got you folks buying into that, not playing the best schedule that you possibly can, when SC has always been that program that says we don't play FCS teams and we like it that way. And now we're not going to play Notre Dame because they're too hard. The fuck? Come on. As a college football fan, it made me unhappy to hear that.
That is blasphemous. That is blasphemous.
Unbelievable.
Well, and here's the thing too. That's interesting. So you say Alabama, for example. Okay, but then again, you have to look at the SEC. Like the teams they play in the SEC are not like cakewalks, and Wisconsin isn't even a cakewalk. Like Wisconsin, like that coach, we'll see what happens this year. Obviously, I think Wisconsin's definitely an interesting team to view, but it's not a cakewalk game. Luke Fickell's a good coach, right? He is.
Yeah, he is. And you're on the road at Camp Randall is not an easy place to go play any time of year.
Well, I mean, it's I mean, early on, I don't think they necessarily you have like.
Dude, the SC
like
fans,
Western,
they love Vegas in LA. They will be there. They won't go to the Coliseum, but they'll go to freaking Vegas to watch that game.
Yeah, well, and you have to say, another aspect of this is like you talk about Bama. Well, they play Western Kentucky. They're not some crap team. Yeah, okay, they're not the SEC standard. That's what I think the thing is where there are games on there. Don't get me wrong. I've seen those games in the past where you're like, why the hell are you playing this team? Right. And it's definitely a money aspect. Maybe give your players the rest. I get that. But then you look at the rest of the schedule and who they're playing. Like you going through an SEC gauntlet. It is it's brutal. Like, it is a brutal league to play in. It goes back to like you go back into like the 90s, early 90s of the Pac-10. It was not a cakewalk back then.
Oh,
Like
no.
teams were freaking good. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're beating Nebraskas, you're beating Michigans, you're beating Miamis and Ohio States, like who are also dominant during that time frame. So like those were good examples. Again, what you're seeing in the SEC, even more so now, just because the level of athlete, the speed, like everything gets better and better and better and faster and stronger. So I don't know. I think
they should be playing it.
if Notre Dame, yeah, I mean,
Big
sorry, if
Ten is
USC,
not
they need to
even that great.
What now?
The Big Ten's not good. Right now, I mean, I think Wisconsin's on its way better, but Penn State, you should win that game. It's already at home. The rest of them that you play, you get the Michigan game on the road. Okay, you're probably going to lose that one. But who else? You don't have to play Oregon. You're not playing Ohio State.
I
What are we
mean,
talking
yeah,
about?
you have your schedule looks pretty. And the next part too with SC is like, you just brought in this hall of defensive coaches that should dramatically help improve, right? Like SC from that side. And what, would you want to say that? Like, we just had this conversation about Notre Dame's schedule. We say, hey, we don't want, like, even you just heard Coach Roybal say that is like the problem you don't necessarily look at is USC or Notre Dame going into the playoffs at 11-1 feels way better than 10-2, because those are, giving SC credit, those are two tough teams between SC and A&M that would be your difficulty. And you need to face those teams to understand what type of team you have, especially now that we have a playoff structure. Like, a playoff structure is not like some freaking walk in the park. And for people, like, you have to look at this aspect of, like, the FCS schools go through this all the time. That's why I argue if when Bama this year has an upper hand due to the way that Kalen DeBoer basically had to go through a similar type of mindset when he's at Sioux Falls, right? So you want to have that advantage. The only way you get that advantage now is by playing tougher teams, building this grit inside of your team, and then getting the playoffs to understand what you're made of. And if you're not facing a difficult schedule, then you really don't know what it's like to hit adversity in a game, and work through that. So that's where my thing is. When you see some of these schedules, like Ohio State, they have their schedule's weak. It's a weak,
Aside from having to go across and play, yeah.
They have a weak schedule.
Yeah,
And
aside from the Oregon game, which who knows how good they are. They haven't won any of their big games either since Dan Lanning got there. I mean, I think they're okay. I don't think they're great though.
But I mean, Oregon, that's going to be an interesting one with replacing what they had. And Dan Lanning's a good coach. I mean, they should be pretty smooth. I
don't think he's elite like everybody's making him out to be yet.
I mean, I think he has to earn that, right? That's all earned, 100%. Like, that is definitely earned. And so I think from that standpoint, though, Ohio State is an interesting one, because they're going to have all this talent, but then come playoff time, where are they truly going to be tested, right? Where is their mindset going to be when they get into a situation when they're having, like, what if they don't win, right? Which would be crazy. What if they don't win the Big Ten?
Sure.
Now they're facing 2 playoff games, right? Potentially, 3, right? You have first, second round. Is it quarterfinals, semis, and then championship? I forgot how that bracket looks again with the 12 team.
Yeah. So if you get in not with the, USC should, but
3.
It'd be, if you get a bye, it's 3. It's 4 if you don't.
Okay, so there you go. So now you have no idea going into a 4-game playoff, right? That potentially like what you're made of. And that's not, do you think that, how does that gonna, I guess, translate to things you faced earlier in the season? That's why teams you don't expect necessarily to have success later down the road, they face adversity early, so then they start to find a success. Arizona was a very good example of that last season. Arizona was a great example of facing adversity early and then knowing what they were made of, and it changed their entire season. I mean, to the point, even their bowl game, look what they did.
Which USC did not do that. I mean, USC went with the Heisman Trophy winner. They went 6-0, and they were a 2-point conversion missed by Arizona away from going 0-6 to finish.
I mean, that's
bad stuff. Not good.
Nah, I mean, and like I said earlier, that has a lot to do with what you surround yourself with. Now, I have to give, here's where I give Lincoln Riley credit, is the fact that he does try in this situation, try to bring in from a defensive standpoint, like some coaches that do have a backbone, that do have like some history, and are successful.
Absolutely.
And
so I like the coaching stuff that they brought in. For sure.
I think, okay, hey, maybe you learn from some things at Oklahoma, you learn from some things that you've already failed at or had some rough goes at.
I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to give them credit for that.
But I'm going to have to see this first. I'm just going to tell you.
No, I feel you on that. So,
I mean, we've watched this movie a few times there, Jake.
Yeah, no. Yeah, well, you especially being, you know, from the Oklahoma aspect of it, that's for sure. But it just will be interesting. I just don't see. It
surprises me that they didn't get rid of Benny Wiley. That's the one that it's got me scratching my head.
Yeah, trust me. I think that's everybody's at that point.
Yeah, even most of the creators. I think even most of the creators out there, even though, I mean, there's a few that are delusional and just believe that USC is going to win no matter what. But I mean, that's everywhere. But
yeah,
I do think that I mean, I've said this a bunch of times that I still believe that Lincoln Riley's the best offensive coordinator, play caller in the country. I would also say that I will go with Kalen DeBoer as another one of those guys, but I would say that he's either number 1 or 1A is what I would say. I mean, he definitely can dial it up. Now, he didn't dial it up very well last year. I will say that. Lincoln.
Well, again, like those are my questions.
You don't get it done. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good look.
It's funny because like Sark's a great play caller too, but yet that has not translated very well towards the big games, right? And I don't know if that's just like the mindset aspect that
7-1.
I just don't know if he brings that tenacity in the locker room with his mindset from the top down, right? Like that's where it starts. So that's an interesting one, especially going in the SEC. I mean, with Texas. So
Trojan Fight, they were saying that 5 years ago in Oklahoma too. So just so you understand, it's just what they say. It's just what they say.
Well, and I think that's a very overlooked.
It's an easy thing to do. It was easy for Lincoln to blame it all on Alex Grinch, and it's easy for them to say the same thing about. It's easy for them to blame him now that he's not there too about the strength and conditioning instead of the fact that the guy is a freaking yoga instructor.
And I've said this before, but people do not realize like how important that is. Like there's a reason why these SEC schools spend so much money and really locate and find. I mean, you look at Georgia and their strength and conditioning. I mean, there's a reason why they do it, because in the end of the day, like that is where you start that grind to bettering your team. That weight room, right? That weight room, that film room, like that. I mean, that what you're doing to help your body, that's huge. And if you're not identifying that as like a main factor in the success of your program, then you just have to question, like, all right, have you have you not learned, or are you stuck somewhere from a coaching standpoint? Right. Because that's a big, I mean, that's crucial. So
yeah. I got USC going 8-4 again for sure, but because I got to see it. But at the end, it's absolutely, Coach. I said it again there. It is the center of it all. Listen, the difference in Oklahoma against Georgia and afterwards, from the Rose Bowl on, you could see it, and it was worse every year. But you could tell from year one. I went to the Rose Bowl and then went to the Orange Bowl the next year, and it was noticeable. But plain and simple. And so, it's just, look, man. And they didn't. Hey, first off, they didn't hire Grinch until year 3. So that's a narrative that they like to talk about. But they didn't hire Grinch, or Wiley was there after year 1, I think, wasn't he, guys? I know for sure, but I'm just telling you. Under it for not being able to bring Big. Oh, you're right there.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
No, you're definitely right there. He's the best in the country. But the other part of it isn't just that. It's because of their strength and conditioning, man. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Like, well, I mean,
did he fire Josh Henson even? That's the other thing. Why not?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
If they think he sucks, why is he still there?
That's the question. Like, you sit there and you're like, okay, you know.
I mean, it's a real question. I'm like, why? Why not? That makes sense. Make it make sense.
No idea on that one. No idea.
No. Yeah, I don't know, man. In the end, I mean, we've been going for over 2.5 hours. It's about time to get out of here. But guys, we appreciate everybody hopping in here. We still got over 130 folks in here. If you hadn't already hit that like button, and Trojan Fight, you've been talking a lot of smack, and so has Numbnut dude in here. You guys better have hit the freaking like button for all the trash you've been in here saying, because nobody kicked you out, even though I know a lot of OU fans wanted to. So
Trojan Fight's been pretty good though. His smack has been. It wasn't. He was pretty. I liked what your comments were, Trojan. I did. In college football,
except for wanting to get rid of the Notre Dame game. I don't respect that, man.
I mean, it is what it is.
That's bad stuff.
Whatever. Look, man, you're a fan. You can have your opinion any day. I thought his comments were pretty decent, and
he was good.
Yeah,
hey, look, man, we've had some USC fans in here that have been brutal.
Yeah,
and honestly, the Texas guys are just trolling. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I've heard much worse from them too.
That's fun, man. It's all good and fun, but sharpshooter. Hey, Brensky, good to see you, brother. So, and then Coach I, man,
coming in too.
Yeah, and Coach I,
everybody had to find you,
hit me up. Yeah, you guys for now, hit me up on Twitter. I don't know if Jason, we can pull that up. I know typically we try to, but
I can.
Hit me up on Twitter and come shoot me a follow, say what's up. You can see it, down below right here. There we go. Shoot me a follow, say what's up. Coach I, if you want to get a hold of me too, let me know. I'd love to jump on. You guys can catch me at Round the Table Sports. You can catch me at JMHO Sports Talk with Coach Sean. You catch me here. I've been on now quite a bit, and it's been a lot of fun. Be doing my own channel here. Hopefully we'll start rolling that out this weekend. I know I've been saying that like for the last 2 weeks, but I just had to get some things in place. You know what I'm saying? That's what it comes down to in the end, you know, but doing my own thing too. And we'll have try to team up with a bunch of people. I love to collaborate. Like, I'm a big collaborator. I'm a team guy.
It's always more fun when you
it is, man.
Other boys. I mean, talking ball, and that's what we love to do. Is we have guests on here as much as possible. I enjoy having you. I definitely appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Coach I, we got, and of course Brinsky's a part of that too. But we got the Saturday Night Snap Count. First episode of that is coming up in 11 days. Wow. So pumped about that one. It won't be this Saturday, but next Saturday, as we get ready for that. Also, Coach I and I probably be, and I was going to talk to you guys about this as well, but looking to do a game day type show starting off the season as well. So we'll kind of collab on some of that stuff and talk about that here in the next few weeks as well. Appreciate all these guys coming in. Make sure you guys get over and check out Coach I and the FanX Sports Network, and then Brinsky Sharp at the Sharp Shooter Podcast. You guys should definitely get over there and check them out as well. Great content. The little barbershop talk in there. Coach I has a couple of different channels, and then Shoddy was in here earlier. Just My Damn Opinion. Great show. Always good stuff whenever you go and watch Shoddy.
What did Shoddy play? What position?
He was a receiver at Georgia.
Yeah. Love it, man. Love that. Kind of so cool, man. Like that's fun because I played safety.
Yep. And thanks for coming in, Trojan Fight. We appreciate it. Satterfield, Richard Shear, Coach I, of course, Neilio, our man from KC Mo. Appreciate you as always. Sharpshooter Pod. Let's see. Want to make sure we get everybody. Richard Shear, Mars Jams, of course. Let's see. Hankster, Bagman, Steve B. Appreciate you guys. As always. Let's see who else. I know we had more. Stink as Cat, Jimmy Satterfield, Trojan Fight, CFB Nut, Numbnut, whatever. I'll shout you out though, as well. And then J Day 2, you're a clown, but you can come back anytime.
I didn't see the college football nut. Did he say he had a show?
Keenafy, I don't know if he did or not, but Keenafy, appreciate that. Actually, that hat is sending you. You like that hat? Yeah, hop on to HOF, hofmedia.us/pod-merch. We're actually updating that some, but you got the shirts for coaches. I don't give a shit shirt. We've got a few different designs for Texas Sucks, but there's a horns down hat that's going to be up there again. I'd taken it down. I kind of redesigned it. We got new hats and stuff coming, so you can check out. But always get on there, check that out, hey, guys. If you have a phone and everybody has a freaking cell phone, make sure you jump over to Mint Mobile, try mintmobile.com/HOF, get unlimited talk, text, and data on the nation's largest 5G network for 3 months at $45. It gives you an opportunity to try it out and you don't have to cancel your service with the big boys just to make sure. I know a lot of people want to do that. I did that for the first 3 months. It is working just fine for me with just Mint Mobile. $15 a month. It's definitely worth a try. It goes to $30 a month after the 3-month initial period. So myself with 2 phones, I'm saving $1,600 this year. It's worth giving it a shot. Try mintmobile.com/HOF. You can thank me later. For you golfers out there, jump onto our Melreg Performance Golf Apparel site. It's melreg.com/JW_HOF. Unbelievable stuff. Great pricing, performance, style, and price. I love really comfortable shorts, especially. I've been buying the shorts lately. They feel like basketball shorts. They look nice, pressed, no wrinkles. Look just like they're supposed to for golf, So I big fan of Melreg. Love that stuff. Guys, the easiest way, just make sure you hit the like button and share us, and we appreciate it. But everybody, thank you so much for coming in. Chicken was also in here. Of course, Neilio, Satterfield. Who else do I don't know. I don't want to miss anybody here. So Richard, Sooner in Texas. I knew I was missing one with that one. Who else? CW Long. Thanks everybody for coming in, checking us out. We really appreciate all you. Hey man, we wouldn't do it without you. So we appreciate all you guys coming in, and we will definitely see you on the next one.